Win up to £25,000. The Community Lottery, a subscription-based lottery that allows you to continue to support good causes that matter. When you win, good causes win. Every month, eligible good causes have the opportunity to win a share of funds that could help them continue the good work that they do in our communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We're live. Hope you're doing really, really great. So tonight we are talking about mental health for Black men. So this is the Open Minds Alliance, and it's the Mental Health Week. It's been an amazing week. Great conversations, great speakers, great organizations. And tonight we've got some more phenomenal, incredible, awesome speakers for you this evening. So my name is Ademola Adeyeba. I'm your host for this evening. I'm the CEO and founder of 1000 Black Boys. We do incredible stuff with young Black boys, young Black men. And I'm also the founder of Get Hench. People normally hear Get Hench and they think about biceps and six packs. We're literally about this. So Get Hench. So how do we empower, inspire the most powerful muscle in the human body? So that's what we do. So tonight we're going to start off with a great conversation with Peter Smith. Going to get to find out about him, his organization. Before we do that, let me also introduce my co-host this evening, Sean.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. So yeah, name's Sean Flores. I'm the founder of Flower Hour podcast. So it looks at personal journals, education and empowerment. So it's great to be able to be here, talk about mental health. Because you know, quite often Black men don't speak enough about their mental health. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be able to speak with all these different individuals.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Looking forward to the conversations. And also what I'm also looking for is that we can connect you, the viewers, to great contacts that can support you on your journey, that can support you with any questions that you've got. So, about to begin, going to invite on Peter Smith, find about Peter, his organization, and what they do. Hello, Peter. You're on mute, Peter. The famous words 2020, 2021.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing, Peter? You all right?
Oh, yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Great to have you on. So myself and Sean, we just we'll be speaking with you, asking questions, and also going through the questions that we can see in the chat over here. But yeah, but tell us about yourself, your organization. What do you do, and also why do you do it?
All right, so I'm an occupational therapist. I work for NHS. I work on an acute mental health hospital on a PQ ward. PQ stands for Psychiatric Intensive Care Unit. And also, during last year, during the beginning of COVID, I set up Circle 333. Okay. And that was set up to improve the lives of people suffering from mental health, but offering a different perspective than the medical model. The medical model is in psychiatry that it uses medication as the main aim to support people going through experiencing mental health. Mm-hmm. And because it's Mental Health Awareness Week, I'd like to share with the viewers and listeners or people watching that I experienced mental health years ago from the age of 20. myself and my identical twin experienced mental health and spent 15 years within the mental health system in the same hospital that I actually work in today.
Wow.
I had numerous admissions into hospital, at least 9, and experiencing psychotic episodes. And the greatest thing about that whole journey is understanding and learning more about myself, and to get to a place where I don't need to have or take medication. I'm not advocating that people who are experiencing mental health shouldn't take meds. It's a personal, individual thing. But for myself, I was able to stop taking meds in 2003.
Congratulations.
So yeah, thank you for that. And so like the reason why I set up Circle 333 is to support individuals experiencing mental health, but to deliver a service away from the medical model, using my occupational therapy background and also my experience as a service user, and also being obviously a Black man as well, to support other individuals on their experience, on their journey. Because a lot of people use the word recovery in terms of when they hear talking about mental health, but I like to use the word discovery. So individuals discovering who they are, and it's quite important. It's about, there's an African saying, man, know thyself. And it just means that the individual has to learn about themselves to find out who they are. And it's deeper than just being a name.
It's really powerful, Peter. And also thank you for your vulnerability in how you shared about your experience. Because quite often, for like Black men within the Black community, to say that, it's normally frowned upon, or people don't open up and talk about those kind of things. What advice would you have for anybody who's out there right now who might be thinking that way? What can you share with them to allow them to open up?
All right. So typically, as you know, from a Black perspective, the experience that we have in the world and what it's like, the challenges that we face. So when you're experiencing trauma, it's difficult to go on and speak to someone about it. Also, being a man in today's society, showing signs of weakness, people think it's if you're vulnerable and you're experiencing trauma and you can't manage, it's looked at as a weakness. But in my journey, I found that it's a strength. And the reason why I would say that, and what I would share with the viewers, is that if you're experiencing any difficulties in terms of your mental health, I would suggest to go and get help to begin with straight away, regardless who it is. Now, on another level, it'll be, in the ideal world, it'd be good to have someone from your own background, your cultural background, that can support you and understand where you're coming from. But the immediate thing I would say is to go and get help. To add to that, I work in Hackney, and I work in the evenings, a place called the Crisis Cafe, and it's for people that live in Hackney to come, and if they're experiencing, if they're in a crisis, they can come and speak to us. The majority of the staff are from Black, African Caribbean backgrounds. But it's for all people. But I would say definitely to come to see us, you can make an appointment. There's a telephone number. I'll give you the information afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But definitely go and get help, because for me personally, I kind of withdrew when I was experiencing mental health over that 15-year period. I was unemployed for 15 years. My first experience of mental health took me into Feltham Young Offenders Institution for a little while, and then I went to hospital from there, went to court, and then came out. And from then, I've been rebuilding my life, and it's difficult as well as being a black man in today's society, especially in Britain, in terms of the racism, the bias, the challenges that people say unconscious bias, but some people is definitely conscious what they're doing. In behind, there's no color, but of course there's color, man. How can you not see color? But dealing with all those things puts pressure on individuals. But I like to say this is kind of controversial, but I see my experience. You know, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia at first, then I was diagnosed with bipolar. But I didn't take on the views of the consultants and staff there. I knew that was something wrong with me. I used to smoke like cannabis for a long period of time. Cannabis, I used to drink alcohol to deal with the issue of the stigma and discrimination of having experienced mental health. So that got me into that wavelength of just not being out of control. But when I looked at myself, trying to find a way, okay, why am I experiencing this? And it was the trauma that I experienced while I was in hospital as an inpatient, getting a lot of medication and you know, sometimes all dribbling, not being in control of my emotions and everything. But when I came out after my 9th admission, I realized I had to do something different. And when I came out and I experienced difficulty and a challenge, and I was almost in crisis, I went to get help for the first time. And when I went to get help for that first time, what it was, I'll give you an example. I was living in Hackney. I had mice in my property. That just the noise of the mouse in the walls, and I couldn't sleep. So that I was like sleep deprivation. So with sleep deprivation, it's the fastest way to becoming mentally unwell. And so I went to the mental health services at that time and requested some sleeping tablets. And that's when I first went to get help. They gave me some Sopiclone for the week. And from that moment, it was a change in terms of how I started to manage and deal with my mental ill health. And from that moment, it was about embracing my experience and not running away from mental health. Because I know that the Black culture, our Black family, you know, it's a taboo to talk about mental health. And when you try to voice it, people don't want to talk about it. They shy away from it because they think it's going to.
Do you want to?
Their family.
One question I ask one and bounce it back on the board.
You want me to answer that question?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, so it's a great question from Petulia.
How does a young adult or mature adult feel confident enough to even embrace that thought of support? It's not a normal intervention that they would think about or consider. So how can it be made more accessible to them? Maybe the service needs to go to them.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so within the NHS, there's a service called the Home Treatment Team who go out to see individuals who may be suffering mental ill health. They can get support from that way. Alternatively, I know a lot of people, even myself, when I was experiencing mental ill health, people would tell me, Peter, you've changed, you're different, you're not yourself. And I'd be like, you know what, I'm fine. I'm not sure what you're talking about. There may be something wrong with you, but there's nothing wrong with me. But so I would say GP, go to your GP. If not, using the crisis cafe if you're in Hackney, if you know other boroughs, there are other services similar to that. But last result is going to A&E to be seen by someone. And first of all, it's about getting help first and realizing that this is an important thing, realizing that experiencing mental ill health is not as bad as people make it out to be. Because I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why I'm saying this is that the individual that experiences mental ill health, the person who they are at that time is no longer serving them. So they enter into this phase where they begin to break down as an individual. Now, in crisis, there's an opportunity to grow and develop into your true self. And that's where a lot of us have issues, where we're fighting who we truly are and we don't know how to get to that point, and thinking that if I experience mental health, then I'm in that criteria, I'm in that pigeonhole, I'm this individual that's different to the rest of society. But really, you're in a position of significance, where you can learn from your experience and grow. But it takes the individual time and with support to understand that experiencing mental ill health is not the end. in terms of your journey. It's the beginning. It's the beginning about learning of who you are. And I know that a lot of people, we talk about mental awareness week and mental health. But from my perspective, and you might not hear many people say this, but because of my experience and my journey, I've got 28 years experience of mental health. And my understanding is opportunity for growth. That's what it is. But we see it in a negative perspective. There's a gentleman yesterday, I think his name was Earl. He was talking about on this platform. He was talking about people experiencing mental health, PTSD, and the impact on the individual. And people often recover from their experience, but I use the word discovery. They discover themselves and they're able to grow. But it's an opportunity to grow into your true self.
And Peter, I think one thing that stood out to me when you were speaking was it's not recovery, it's about discovery.
Yeah.
You know, you said you were admitted 9 times, and on the 9th admission, you realized there was something that was going on. For a lot of people, when they go through mental health crisis, usually they can't see a light at the end of their tunnel. For you yourself, what was that thing that pushed you to make you realize that I am going to come out of this? And whilst I may not be specifically better, this is a marathon and not a sprint.
Well, I used to sit down for long periods. I used to be at home, didn't go out for like a month at a time, 6 weeks, just being at home, looking out the window, thinking, wishing I was a person walking their dog. You know, I wish I was the person out there walking their dog, and I was in my house, behind, closed off, isolated. But the catalyst was that. Is there feedback? The catalyst for me was knowing that and realizing that I was the light. So each individual, they are the light that they seek, as in, you know, that expression, the light at the end of the tunnel that you just made. But right. What people don't realize is that they are the light. But it sounds kind of, what is he talking about? So I'll try and break it down a little bit. So when you're experiencing difficulties and challenges in life, right, that's the way in terms of your experience, in terms of developing and learning to find out who you are. I know that we're brought up and taught to experience that if you experience negativity or what we perceive to be negativity as something bad. But what if I've put it out to you and to the listeners and people watching that, what if everything that happens in your life is the universe working in your best interest? I'm just saying. So the thing that you consider to be negative could also like be positive when you step back. You know, when you're like you can't see the wood from the trees, so you're standing right out of the tree, you can't see that it's a tree. But when you step back and you look at the bigger picture, you can see everything. So I'm just saying that the experiences that we have, the difficulties. I'm not saying that because racism and people being negative towards you as an individual for no reason that makes sense, and it doesn't. But another way of managing and dealing with that is to see yourself as someone as significant, someone who's important, no matter what background you come from, not matter what experience you've had. Look, I had a criminal record, I had mental health, and also, okay, I'm black, and being black, you know that being black around the world, it poses challenges. But when you see yourself as somebody, like regardless of how people see you, so basically what I'm saying is not to be defined by what people think about you, and that can be challenging and difficult because a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on what other people think about them. But what I say to people is, what you see, how you see yourself is here. How other people see you is there. So it's lower down. So it's more important how you see yourself. And when you have that kind of mindset, it's all about perception as well. How you perceive. You know, there's a saying. I always like metaphors. There's a saying, right? Is the glass half empty or half full? But for me, I'm just happy that there's a glass.
Yeah, perspective.
Yeah, see, exactly. It's a perspective. So, and then another perspective is, you know, that the caterpillar, when it's going along, it's crawling on its all fours and considering on its journey, it goes into a cocoon. And that's our representation of our life and our journey. We go into a cocoon. We have to kind of, dissolve ourselves and then come out as a butterfly. And now in that metamorphosis that happens, there's a journey, and that you can put that to the experience of your own life. So your life may look like it's not going nowhere, but it is on the biggest perspective. But you have to be able to look at it. Okay, now I'm experiencing this challenge, but that challenge I'm experiencing is there to help me, but not in a negative way where you say, why is this happening to me? And then if you have that kind of mindset, things will continue to happen. There is a biologist by the name of Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton. He talks about epigenetics. And what he says is that what we think is what we create. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking on a path that, our life's not good and it's bad, it's rubbish, that's what you create in your reality. So it's important what we think about. Because there's another saying, as a man thinks, so is he. Yeah, but I'm not religious. I grew up in Christianity as a child. I came out of it when I was 16 and then experienced mental health by 20. But now it's about learning who you are. Is there that?
I mean, Peter, making some really powerful points for those that are listening out there. I mean, the thing that I love from what you said is the power of perspective. So you can perceive what you're experiencing in the way that either disempowers you or in a way that empowers you. And from what you're saying is you went through these things that are challenges, things that people perceive as being very, very difficult, things that people are normally embarrassed to talk about, but you perceived it as a way that's a part of your journey, and you use that to empower yourself. I just wanted to literally anchor that so it didn't get lost, that people can actually just remember that. I know that from, I don't know about you, going through the education system, if failure was bad, but actually that so-called failure is an experience that you can use for success, is an experience that you can use for growth in life. And that's really what you're saying. And I really want to anchor that to our listeners, to people that will watch this later on, that regardless of what you're dealing with, regardless of what you're going through right now, from Peter's story, use that. You can use that to empower yourself. And one of the things that I say is, if you're still breathing, you're still in the game. And Peter, you are an example of that. So you went through all those challenges, and here you are. You're empowering people. You're doing what you love. And I also love your T-shirt as well. I was about to comment. So you're doing some very, very inspiring, incredible, amazing things. And just really for those that are listening, if you're going through a challenge, if you're going through a tough time, you're going through things that are really getting you down, you can look at it in at least two ways: in a way that disempowers you, or a way that empowers you. And here's an example of what happens when you empower yourself in those situations. It can be challenging, and what you do, from what Peter's saying, is reach out for support. Don't go it alone.
Absolutely.
You're joking, Sean.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so your top says, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. What does that statement mean to you? Because quite often in the Black community now, we often speak about our ancestors and what we have been through compared to where we are now. What does that statement hold to you, and how does that manifest into your life currently?
Right, so the very, very poignant question. I love that question still. So basically what it means to me is that the people, my family, my ancestors that came before me, went through a lot of struggle and suffering for me to have the opportunity to be here now. So now I have the opportunity now. And so I'm looking at, okay, then I'm standing on their shoulders, right? So now I'm using my opportunity now to do the right thing. So I know that whatever I do in life from this, every day has a reverberation. You know, like you have a pebble when you throw it into a pond and that ripple. Yeah. So if you consider those ripples as life-changing moments or negative moments, right? So if I'm throwing something into a pond, and each time I throw something into the pond is something that I've done which is negatively impacting not only me, my family and friends, and that could continue to happen for generations. So for me personally, I'm looking at the legacy. What legacy am I going to leave behind? Not just for like my son, my grandchildren. But, 100, 200, 300 years from now, what am I doing now is going to impact on them, or the people that come after me, my family, my friends, the people, my culture, my people. What's going to happen? So the reason why I'm wearing this t-shirt is that I'm accountable. I'm being accountable to me. I'm being responsible in the decisions that I make, and know that what I do impacts on not just my family, my friends, but people that look like me. So we all have a responsibility to do, and do the right thing. As in, when I say the right thing is, no, if you're going to go and do something and it's wrong, think about it. And I'm not saying that I went through, obviously, my experience is I got in trouble with police because of my mental health. I'm saying when you have the understanding to know what you're doing, think about it. That's what I'm saying. And the impact that it's going to have, not just you, but everyone around you and people that are going to come after you.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you very much. And just back to something else you said earlier on, because very often people hear the word vulnerability and they think it's a bad thing. And especially if you're a man, like a black man, like, what away from that word? Like, can't be vulnerable. But you touched on it earlier. I think you said something like, it's powerful. There's power behind it, being vulnerable. Could you say a bit more about that as we're coming to the end of this session? Tell us a bit more about the power of vulnerability.
So where most people, especially if you're on the road, you can't show I'm weak, yeah. But in everyday life, in terms of growth and development, if you have a weakness and you identify that, right? So you're exposed to something where, like for me, I'll use myself as an example. I had mental health for a period of time, yeah. But in that, it allowed me to find myself. So when I was depressed, I wouldn't go out. I'd be at home. I'd be indoors. I when I was psychotic, I'd do crazy, mad things, and people would see me, and my neighbors would see me, and then they would see me afterwards, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they're gonna remember that I did these things. But in being vulnerable, being low, or expressing how you're feeling, showing. As a man, I'm a man, but my partner see me cry, but it was me letting out how I felt. But I didn't feel like, oh my God, see me cry. I don't feel, oh my gosh. My fiance see me cry, she's gonna think I'm a weak person. But even she understands, like, as a masculine person, you hold your frame, but at the same time, being vulnerable is a strength.
Yeah.
Letting people see a vulnerable side is not a weakness; it's a strength, because you know that, okay, I'm gonna get support and help for what I need. And as a black man in today's society, I can say honestly that it's more about being true to yourself.
Perfect.
Be true to yourself.
Perfect. Just
on that as well. That's another important thing. You have to love yourself. Look in the mirror and love what you see, and not think negatively. Oh, I don't have this. I don't have that. It's more important to focus on what you do have and be grateful for that.
Perfect. Peter, some absolute gems there. Really key things was, number one, the power of vulnerability. 2, you spoke about perspective and how that's really very, very important. And also responsibility. So not seeing yourself as just this individual, but there's people that you are responsible for, and people responsible for you to get here. And yet again, that just shapes how you make different choices in life. So real pleasure having you on this evening. Real pleasure having you share your wisdom with us.
Can I give you my book and book title?
Yes, go for it.
Plug yourself.
No, it's not my book. It's not my book. This is the ISIS Papers.
I love that book. Book to recommend.
Dr. Cress Welting.
The ISIS Papers.
Yeah, the ISIS Papers. And the website, I got a website for you, for the listeners. It's a very good website. Have a look at it. It's called Real History, REAL History, www.com. And that will give you the people watching some information to find out about history, as in Real history, yeah.
Okay. Peter, if you put that into the chat for us, we'll share that with everybody else who's viewing.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Great to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, our pleasure. Our complete pleasure. So great conversation to start off with.
Before I go, I'll just mention my website, which is I'll put it out in the chat as well. www.circle333.com.
Perfect. So similarly, if you do that, we'll put that into the chat for everyone to see.
Will do.
Back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Complete pleasure. It's a great conversation to start off with.
Fantastic.
That was amazing. For those of you that are in the chat with us, we can see the chat. So we've got two screens here. Two screens. There's this one and there's this one. So if you are finding this really useful and beneficial, like press the like button, like comment, interact with us, share this. So we want this to reach as many people as possible. So if this is blessing you, adding value to you on a Saturday evening, definitely just like, tell people about this and comment and talk to us. And also press that like button as well. It's very, very important. So we know that you find this very, very useful.
Definitely.
So we've got another amazing speaker, and they're doing some really great things. Davis Williams from MAG. I'll let him introduce himself very, very shortly.
Definitely. Let's get into it.
So Sean will be leading this conversation. So let's bring Davis on.
Hey, family. How you doing?
Oh, Davis, I recognize you from Manhood Academy.
Yes.
I recognize you as well. How you doing?
Listen, I'm still here. I'm so happy to be joined by you today. It's a thankful conversation because I've spoken with the Manhood Academy previously on my podcast. I spoke with Khonshu, and it was an absolutely fantastic conversation. To be able to have this conversation in this space is going to be, again, enriching. So tell me a little bit more about yourself. How I like to think of conversation, I treat it like a first date. We're going out, we're both getting to know one another. So tell me a little bit more about yourself and the organization.
This is a first date. Are you buying the drinks or am I buying?
Equality. You earn your money, I earn mine.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for the invitation, man. I've been listening to that throughout the week, and the value that you guys are, like sharing with the community, phenomenal. So like, I want to commend everybody, from the tribe that's making this work. My name is Davis Williams from Manhood Academy Global. And also, I'm also from another organization called The Naked Truth. If I've got time, I can explain that. And I'm just passionate about working with young people in our community. And also, we work with families as well. There's a little bit of a misconception that I just work with young people. But what's important is that we do focus on the holistic approach, working not only with the young person, but with the family as well, because the family are an important cog in this mechanism. Through Manhood Academy, what happened was, I think this was like 2016, I went through a little episode where I was enraged. I had a lot of tension. I don't really want to give it labels, but if I was to, you could say I was depressed. I was stressed. I was a little bit anxious as well. And why? It's because within the nature of this work, I work with a lot of young people who are going through a lot of stuff, like they're in and out of prison and all sorts, And what happened in that particular year, I lost 3 young people. So 3 young people that I work with, they passed away, they got murdered. And I became a little bit disillusioned. I was asking myself, is this the work that I want to do? Like, really, Davis, is this it? Like, do I want to expose myself? And I was just like, what I'm doing is not good enough. So I started to reflect on myself. And I decided to go on holiday. I said, like, I need a break from all of this. So I went to Gambia with my daughter, with an organization called AGA, and that's where I could honestly say that I found myself. I detached myself from this environment, which is very stressful, it's very fast-paced, very success-driven, and I went to a country like the Gambia where everything was just nice and slow, and not much was happening in regards to what I was doing normally. And I remember this day so clearly. I was walking on a beach, and I saw a group of teenagers, and naturally everywhere I go, I'm a conversation. I love talking to everybody. I get in trouble sometimes by the missus, like, why are you talking to strangers? I just can't help it. I'm my mum's child, So I was talking to some teenagers. They were wrestling on the beach, and then after they was wrestling, like, they washed their hands and stuff, and they were all seated in a center, and like they had some food and they were eating food, and I was just like, wow. I said, brothers, I love seeing this. And the guy said, like, you love seeing what? I love seeing brothers unify. This is what we do in the Gambia. Like, this is what we do. And then I started to share, like, where I'm from. I don't get to see this. Where I'm from, teenagers, there's a different energy totally. And throughout the whole conversation, they kept on saying key words like bush school, or rites of passage, or bush. So I was asking them, like, what is this bush school you're talking about? And they made it very clear. At the age of 13, all of the 13-year-olds are gathered together by the men of the village. So whether it's the uncles, the neighbors, the dads, the granddads, the peers, everyone that's of age will gather all of the teenagers, and they will take them out, literally remove them, separate them from the protection of their mum or the village, take them into the bush, and they will teach them certain things, to not only teach them what manhood is through demonstration, but also give them tools to help them regulate themselves, help them manage their mental health, help them with their purpose and all of that stuff. And they're in the bush for months. When they come back to the village, there's a big celebration, drumming, everyone welcomes them, welcome back, children. And then, like they get back, they've got a new sense of purpose, and they are kind of initiated into the village, and that's when I started hearing a quote: if you don't initiate the young boy into the village, the young boy will burn it down just to feel the warmth. And when I started to hear all of these quotes, it just all made sense to me. It's just like, this is what's happening in London. I remember when I was 16, someone said, "Oh, Davis, if you want to be a man, you need to hold this gun." You know what I mean? Mum, I hope you're not watching. You know what I mean? She don't even know this, and I said, wow, is this what manhood is? Because no one taught me what manhood was. I literally had no idea. It was a conversation I never had. All I know is things was happening to my body, things was happening to my psychology, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to process it. And from there, came back to London, started Manhood Academy. And from there, I got a real insight into mental health, mental ill health, how to combat it positively. And yeah, I began my own journey of healing myself as well. So yeah, that's what I do in a nutshell. And off the back of that, we also work with parents through another space called The Naked Truth. And what The Naked Truth is, we realize that anytime there's something that happens in the community, you tend to see the same faces in these youths, in these community centers. Like they've been the rounds. They go to the stop and search forums. They go to the protest. But you have a group that don't go nowhere. They'll go raving though. So what we decided to do, we decided to hold debates and discussions in wine bars and clubs, because we know people have to dance, So I want you to imagine you got your suit on, you got your tie, your aftershave. Our empresses have got their heels on and they're looking immaculate. They go to the wine bar, they're drinking, and then the music will stop, and then the host will come out, and then there'll be a discussion. But the discussion is based on how do we heal ourselves? What is our naked truth? How do we confront whatever's afflicting us and things of that nature? And let me tell you something, brothers. Like, wow, we are carrying a lot of stuff. Not only the young people, but our parents as well, the adults. We're carrying a lot, and we need a place to deposit it. I like what the brother was saying. I think it was Peter from, is it Circle 333? Yeah, we have to begin to accept who we are as individuals. And once you can begin to accept who you are, that's where knowledge of self kicks in. Knowledge of self for me is not knowing about, Mansa Musa or the pyramids and stuff like that. That's good. But what knowledge of self for me is, you need to know yourself. What are your triggers? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What's your stresses? What's happened? What has happened that made you into who you are now? And all of these things. And these are the kind of discussions that we have with young people and their parents as well.
David's question. So you're doing some really great stuff, because I've heard a lot about you guys. And I actually know quite a few people that are part of your team. Talk a bit more about the importance of involving parents in the conversations with the children. Why is that important?
So it's important because it's about giving young people the tools. Yeah. They say it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
So what we say to our parents is, when you go to the motherland, and I don't know about other places in the world, but when a parent gives birth to a child, that child don't belong to the parent. It belongs to the community. It belongs to the village. So the way that I raise my children, I could bring my child anywhere, and I would allow you to discipline my child if I'm aware of, not strangers, but again, within a certain context. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I don't mind
the same.
Yes, exactly. So I mind other people, and I think these things are important. And what tends to happen is our young boys grow up, and it's like they grow up disabled. Like they're not given the tools. They don't know how to cope. Their mum have looked after them all of their lives, or their dad, whatever it is. And then secondary school, there you go. You got no tools. Go out to the world. Go school by yourself. Go and face these year 9, year 10s, year 11s. Man them on the block who are just smoking at the back. They're exposed to all of these things. Yeah. And the parents are not prepared because the parents might not know. And the young boys and the young girls definitely don't know. So what we tend to do, we tend to work a lot with the parents, giving them the tools, giving them the strategies so they can raise their child, but also allowing them to, or empowering them to open up their doors so other families can also work with them. You know, so now we've got a network of parents. We've got a WhatsApp group. Parents share their strategies, they share whatever's happening, and then you see all of the solutions that's coming out. All of us are going through the same stuff, you know. All we have is each other. We don't have no one else. No one else is coming for us. So until we begin to say, do you know what? I might not trust you, but a little bit, but I know that there's a bigger distrust out there. So I need to work with you, and I need to find a way to work with you as opposed to focusing on the one little thing that I might not like. And there's about 10,000 things that we've got in common that we can focus on. So we put a lot of emphasis on our parents, strengthening them, dealing with their inner child as well, because they've been through stuff, just so they can become better humans.
Perfect. Because I was talking with the mother during the week, and she was giving us a hard time about how her child now is. Yeah. And I assured her that, look, listen, when he arrived, they didn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
A manual that said, this is how you operate him, and these are the things you should do, things that you shouldn't do. So I really love the fact that you're involving parents in that conversation, because I think it makes a huge difference. Yeah. Because that environment at home creates either gives a culture that reinforces the development or sucks it out.
Yes, absolutely.
And you mentioned trust as well, Davis. You mentioned trust. So the theme for this week is build back trust. So after the year that we've all had, I've never had a year like this before ever in my life. Maybe previous generations have had their version. So how can different organizations like you, like ours, how can they build back trust with the community? How can we do that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's about having honest, transparent communication. I think it always boils down to those transparent, powerful conversations. Like sometimes I wear two hats. I've got my own organization, I've got my own charity, but also I work with other organizations as well. And I know how it feels when I listen to a young person who's trying to engage with an organization and the kind of loopholes they need to jump through, or the amount of times they get batted back. It's ridiculous. Like they feel disheartened, like, oh no, like I'm not going to again. I know what it's like when I've got one of my clients and I'm trying to get them sorted out because they're going through crazy stuff. And then I'm on the phone to an organization and they just don't communicate well, or they create barriers that just make it like this is not worth it, you know. So one of the things I would say is, and also being able to answer that question straight. Like there's a lot of politicians out there. There's a lot of individuals who, we're living in the age, and let's be real, we're living like social media, we're living in the age where we are walking on a tightrope. We can't do nothing wrong. Not even footballers can make a mistake, because if they make a mistake, they're getting racially abused. Players are anxious, you know, like, oh, I missed a goal. They miss a goal, they know what's going to happen when they get home and they go into the Instagram, you know. But we have to get into the habit of, you know, like, it's okay to make each other a little bit like, we can disagree. That is healthy. It's healthy to disagree once you do it with honor. And one of the ways we can build trust is for organizations to start having these discussions, you know, and open up their doors for that and allowing themselves to be vulnerable. The individuals within the organization can be vulnerable, but the organization itself, you know, it must appear to be vulnerable enough to engage in those kind of discussions, you know what I mean? And I think that's important. When an organization, and I'm saying this because I'm an organization owner, when an organization professes to have all the answers, that's problematic. Because when someone comes with a solution, or when someone comes with a problem or concern, then it becomes, I've got the solution for that. But sometimes it's not the solution that that parent is looking for. It's someone to listen and to connect and to learn, you know. And I think it's that connection that we need to focus on.
That's an absolutely fantastic one. And I think with myself being raised by a single mother, my mother and I never had certain conversations about masculinity, manhood, and perhaps it was quite hard for her to have those conversations. And coming from a Caribbean background where my mum was somewhat stubborn in some senses. How are you able to negotiate with some parents who perhaps might be resistant to change, or someone challenging them on their parenting strategies? How are you able to mesh that with people who are willing and open to listen?
It's extremely difficult. That's for starters. But it's only difficult when you have an off-the-shelf program. If you've just got a program off the shelf and you want to apply it, it doesn't work. You need to get to know the family. You know, you need to do your assessments, your baseline, and get to know their characteristics, their nature, and then whatever you propose to do as an intervention has to reflect their nature, if that makes sense. That's why within our program we focus on like animation, cartoons, forces of nature like earth, fire, water, air. So that way, your politics don't get involved, your religion don't get involved, your spirituality. We're talking about cartoons, but we're talking about the principles, and these principles surpass your color, surpasses your culture, surpasses who you are, your name. They're these universal standards, universal norms, and that allows us to talk to parents in a clean way. You know, especially when you're talking about concept like manhood. A lot of like manhood is a trigger for a lot of people. We can articulate it, of course we can, because we're intelligent. When you're in certain environments and then I ask you about manhood, about your upbringing, then you start seeing the barriers come. You see a different demeanor, and I've seen it, you know, and I see that within myself as well, because I'm still learning about manhood. I'm still developing myself as an adult. Manhood is not something where a dictionary cannot describe it. You know, it's a social concept, isn't it? So your opinion of what manhood is might be totally different to mine, but you're not wrong and I'm not wrong. But what we want to try and do is get the principles, and this is what we really focus on. When parents ask me, "Oh, Davis, are you religious?" I'm like, "Why are we even?" Let's focus on the principles. You know, integrity, love, trust, empowerment, freedom. These are the things. Support. These are the things that we really want to focus on, because we tend to get lost in organizations and brands and logos and all of that, and then it kind of separates us. But if we focus on the values and the virtues and the principles, it will bring us together much, much quicker.
Love it. Sounds awesome. Let me ask you this as well. So for those that are listening, how can they get in touch with Mag? How can they get hold of the Manhood Academy and also your other organization? Somebody's heard this and they're thinking, wow, I want to hear some more. I could do with that support. How did they get a hold of you?
So I'm putting the website into the chat now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but literally, someone was asking me the other day, do I enjoy the work that I do? Like, I enjoy eating. I enjoy playing football and inspiring. But when I get a phone call from a young boy who's saying he's going to stab his dad, like, I don't enjoy that. That's not an enjoyable conversation. It's stressful, you know. When my phone rings at a certain hour and I see a young person, I know exactly what's going on when I see them phoning at that time, because normally they don't phone for a chit chat. You know what I mean? So we have to start being our own solution, you know. And to do that, we have to be very accessible. I am very accessible. My team is very accessible, and we're here for the community, and we love working with Omar and Black Socks and Father to Father and all the other amazing organizations and charities, because we are all we have. No one is coming to save us. There's no A team. There's no one that's going to parachute for no, it's like, it's us. Like, this is it here, guys. Like, this is it. So we have to find a way, and also we have to find innovative ways, you know, smart ways, cunning ways that really, you know, that really entice individuals to engage in conversations that a lot of people don't want to have. And this is one of the conversations that people don't really want to talk about. When I go football tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, me talking about mental health at football, jeez, it is bad. It is bad, but it's a conversation that we must have. So ideas like mixing football with motivation and having a tournament, like all of these things is essential, because there's no point preaching to the converted. There's so many people out there, parents and young people, who are not engaging because they're not connected to this frequency. Their frequencies, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. However, we as the light bringers must show them the light. Not to say the light is better than where they are, but if we're saying this is it, then we need to find ways to engage with that.
Davis, I'd love to find out, you know, I've been looking for somewhere to play football, so send me some details, come through, give you a little nutmeg every now and then. But most importantly, in that sense of community, you know, this is a question I think is on a lot of people's minds. A lot of boys raised by single mothers do an absolutely fantastic job. But what is that missing link between the father, perhaps, and the children? Is it something that's downplayed in the senses of fathers are really important for a lot of boys in that transition to manhood? Because a lot of tests and studies have shown when boys have no role models, they look to other people outside of their family to set rules and values for them in the world. And in some aspects, a lot of mothers are terrified that the outside world is not a safe place for them. How are you able to negotiate, again, that space between working with fathers to come back into their boys' lives, or working with fathers to perhaps show their boys a conducive side of masculinity and manhood?
Yeah, I think the first thing, I personally believe that it's a myth that when young boys go astray, it's down to fathers being absent, you know, so that I don't agree with. But I do know statistics may support a certain narrative, and I understand that as well. Also, when parents say to me, I'm a single parent, me personally, I don't like that phrase because you're giving me the impression that you're doing it all by yourself. You know, I would rather them say that, yeah, they are with their child, but they should be looking at a network, you know, a network around their child. Every parent, in my opinion, all the parents that we work with, we encourage them. Like, if dad is not there, even physically, he might be there spiritually or emotionally or whatever, but try and get a network of individuals around your child, because it takes a village. So we always have to go back to the original statement. If it takes a village, then every child needs a village. What does that village look like? It's not probation, it's not youth offending, it's not Mind and all of these other charities, which are little good, don't get me wrong, but where are the individuals? Where's the uncles, the aunties, the neighbors, the brothers, the mentors, the role models, the shopkeeper, all of these individuals? We have to come out of our comfort zone to create this. And what I've noticed, and it's not a criticism, but I've said it on like my personal platform as well, that I see a pattern that parents wait until the last minute and then they call for help. Like, my house is on fire. They can smell gas. They've not said nothing. You know, they can see a little spark. They've not said nothing. But when the blaze is there, that's when we tend to get phone calls. We tend to get phone calls when the fire is already happened. It's too late at that point. And it's not too late. It's not definite as a figure of speech. But what we have to start doing is putting these mechanisms in place from early on. And that takes all of us, you know, as individuals. So when I do speak to parents and my team as well, it's very much about, like challenging the narrative, challenging their stereotypes and how they view the world, and encouraging them that, look, your child you have some fathers here, like they see their child once a month, right, because of work and so on and circumstances, and that child is flourishing just because that child gets to see the dad once a month. So it's not even regular, but it's the quality we're looking at, you know. But if you times that by the role models and creating that network, then it's amazing. But what we need to start doing, we need to start being so truthful. I liked again what Paul or Peter was saying about vulnerability. We have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. I love it when parents are vulnerable and they speak, because they speak with such power, like with such authority, like that. Vulnerability is a beautiful thing. I love it when I'm vulnerable, because that's when I'm most productive. That's when I get the most, when I'm angry, when I'm vulnerable, and I feel, that's when I get most things done. And it's this, how do you take that energy, that emotion, and channel it in the right direction? And that's one of the main things we teach young people, that self-control. When you feel something, how do you channel it in the right area of your life? Don't channel it towards your teacher or your mom. Channel it and get an outcome from it, a positive outcome. And that's what we teach young people more often than not.
That's great. And what's your, just to ask as well, as a closing, Davis, do you have your book recommendation for those that are listening? A book that you would recommend to them?
Yeah, so two things. Number one, I would say, can you guys see that?
The Professional Natal Report.
Yeah. So one of the things that I done when I went through my situation, I was questioning that Davis, like I wasn't even sure who I was in terms of things keep on happening to me, like breaking down relationships or argument, and I'm like, what is it me? Like the character that's in all of these situations, is me. I'm everywhere, and then there's dysfunction. So I had to look at myself. So I got a professional natal chart done, and it might not be for everybody, but what they do, they read the stars. You know, they tell you where the sun is, where the moon is, where certain planets are, and they compile a report. Right? When I read this report, and you can see some areas are highlighted, yeah, it was like they knew me intimately, like they knew my decisions, they knew my nature, what I'm likely to do, my tendencies. When I read this, I started crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been fighting against who I really am. Like, this is who I am. You know what I mean? Yes, Davis is aggressive. Yes, Davis has got a temper. But then how do I channel that? You understand what I'm saying? How do you channel that in the right direction? So this is something that we get for all of our young people. We get a natal chart down once they reach a certain stage in our curriculum. Just so we're not telling them who they are. This is what the stars are saying, you know, so they can have that. Then we get their parents to do something as well. We get parents to do a promise letter. Long story, but we get parents to write a letter to their child about the purpose of that child and so on and so forth. So we want to bombard the young people so much stimuli, but all of it says the same thing. Young person, know yourself. Number 2, be successful, know your path. So I would definitely say get a natal chart. And the second one that I will say as well, this book here, From Boyhood to Manhood. Okay. And this is volume 1. This has been supported by Omar as well. So thank you, Omar, and Black Sox for supporting this. But what this is actual activity journal teaching young boys how to become men. So through activity, through guided discovery. This is actually a journal. So young boys can sit there with their family, with their mum, their dad, and they can literally complete it. They've got prompts in there. There's conversation starters. There's debates. There's visual stimuli. There's homework and tasks and challenges. All of it that's gathered, or all of it is geared towards not only mental health and mental well-being, but what is manhood, and allowing young people to discover manhood for themselves. We don't tell young people, this is what manhood, a man should walk like this. No, we have to allow them to discover it. All we encourage them to do is focus on the principles and how those principles connect to their purpose and their family and so on and so forth. So, yeah, they're the 2 books that I would recommend. And yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. And just in close, anything you want to say to those that are listening, those that watch us again in closing?
Yeah, what I would say is, yeah, definitely like keep in touch with us. We've got some exciting projects coming up real soon. But most importantly, it's all going to be funneled and focused around the concept of truth and allowing us to heal our households. There's a lot of individuals, they focus on working with young people and families, but they don't heal their own house. We have to get our own house in order. I think there's a Jamaican saying, I'm not going to try and use the patois, but before you dance over there, dance in your house first. Do you know what I mean? I heard Brother Marlo say it often. I'm like, I love that. You know what I mean? But we have to dance in our own house. We have to make sure that our house is tight.
Yeah.
And that means like love has got to be the center of that. Vision has got to be the center of that as well. And honesty and integrity. So that's what I would like to leave everyone with today.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Davis. Great to have you on. Thank you for your advice, for your wisdom. And yeah, so people, the details are there to reach out to the Manhood Academy. They're doing some great work. So have a great evening. See it, thenakedtruth.uk.com or thenakedtruthuk.com and academyglobal.com. Brilliant.
Right. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your Saturday evening.
That was a fantastic conversation.
Great conversation, right?
Absolutely, really, really enjoyed that. I think work around masculinity and manhood especially is needed.
Yeah.
The crisis of mental health for Black boys coming into Black men. So for sure.
100%. And the thing that was also consistent with what he said was about vulnerability.
Yes.
So exactly the same thing that Peter spoke about, where vulnerability is not a weakness. And he spoke about vulnerability on a level of for organizations. And also that one organization doesn't try to solve all the problems. That doesn't make any sense. It's not possible. And just on that note, we've now got a panel conversation with different organizations. So just literally tying in very, very well with that point about how it's the teamwork, it's the collective effort that can make a real big, huge difference. And on that note, we're going to invite along Tony, Andrew, Courtney, and Sean. Not Sean, it's Sean. Hello, Courtney. Hello, Tony. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Hi, Abdi. Hi, Sean.
Yes, great to have you on. Let's have Andrew Mohammed join us as well.
Andrew, absolutely, man. You good?
Yeah, you?
Always, big brother. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, so great to have you all on. I definitely would love to ask Courtney a question during this conversation about the roles that that fathers play in the house. I know father do some great work in that area. We're going to have Sean join us very, very shortly as well. But great to have you all on. You're all doing incredible things within your organizations, making a difference within our community. And like, I know Andrew well, I know Courtney well, I know your heart behind the work that you do, that you guys are really passionate about this. This is like you, if I can be you love it. You love what you do. You love it, right? And it's like you're in your purpose. And I'm certain probably the same thing as well for Tony. But over to you guys. Tell us about you, your organizations, what you do, why you love it so much, and why you do it. Let's start off with Courtney.
First of all, thank you for having me, Abdi and Sean. So for those who don't know, I'm Courtney Brown. I'm the CEO and founder of Father to Father, and I'm also one of the board members for OMA. I'm founding and the founder of OMA. In regards to Father to Father, our specialism is obviously work with fathers, but we work with the holistic family as well. You know, my day job, I work in a secondary school in Hackney as head of student engagement, and that includes, you know, lead on mentoring department, lead on the parent to engagement department and community engagement. So yeah, with that experience of being in education for over 10 years, it's what I've brought into Father to Father. So we've got our programs called Boy Genius, which is a 24-week program that looks at identity, which I know has been talked about a lot, identity for Black boys. It talks to self-regulation. So how do you manage your emotions in a positive way? And it looks at your talents and gifts, because obviously we believe that every boy and girl, but every boy has a talent and gift that they can share to the world. So how do they find that talent and gift? We also have something called Tools for Teenage Years. So that's a parenting program where it's evidence-based as well. We've worked with two ladies from CAMS, African Caribbean ladies, who have developed this program, evidence-based program that supports our African Caribbean community, engaging with their teenage children. And the last product we have is Men Chat 2. The chat is an acronym for Men Need to Connect, Men Need Healing, Men Need to Be Acknowledged, and Men Need to Talk Too. So that was a 12-week program that was seed funded by City and Hackney Clinical Commissioning Group. And we know the Marika Mason Omar's chair, she's just written a report, and all the findings of everything that we've done as Omar is coming out in that report. But the findings have been tremendous, and especially within Men Chat 2, you know, the Black men have really said to have somewhere where they can come and talk freely, not be judged, express themselves, and it's culturally competent, has been has really benefited them during the lockdown. So much so that one of the dads basically went back to his GP, and the GP was going to refer him to a counsellor, and he literally told the GP, "No, that's okay. I'm part of a organisation called Father to Father Men Chat 2, and I'm getting the type of service I need." Where now the GP wants to speak to Father about social prescribing in Hackney. So, you know, those are some tremendous outcomes that we've been able to do through Father to Father.
Awesome. A really quick question, Courtney. Why do you do this work? Why do you do what you do?
It's my journey. You talked about purpose, you know, and as a child growing up in Tottenham, Broadwater Farm and Northumberland Park, you know, and this doesn't this obviously is my personal journey. And when I'm talking about my personal, I'm talking from a point of view when I was a boy, a child. Yeah, and I yearned my father's attention. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm talking about this when I was a child, so I didn't know any better. But now, understanding the work I've been doing in Hackney, I understand what my dad was going through in the 70s and 80s, just trying to survive and experiencing racism, but and you know, fighting the police and the NF and everything else. But as a child, you don't know that. So all I wanted was his love and his attention. But I didn't get that in the way I wanted it. So I became an angry black boy in Tottenham, seeking validation, seeking how to become a man. And I tried to follow my dad's footprints because he was a bad man in Tottenham, well, very influential in Tottenham. And then, you know, I became a father myself at 21 and had my first son, then had my next son at the age of 25. Thought I was a better father because I compared myself to my father, but there was so much missing, to so much that I was working in one of the secondary schools I was working with. And, you know, I remember I remember a few times boys and girls coming into our office emotionally upset. And when I asked them what was wrong, the trigger for them was dad. Whether dad was actually physically at home and not emotionally connected or not there at all. I can go through all kind of reasons these young people gave me. It triggered me, and I realized that actually that's the same pain I had as a child. And, you know, these young people at school were seeing me as a role model. But then I realized that actually I wasn't living I wasn't being authentic, because they see me as a role model, but I caused the same pain and harm that they're going through, I've caused to my two big boys. So at the age, so I'm known as a restorative practitioner, and anybody knows what a restorative practitioner is. It's somebody that repairs harm.
Sure.
So I realized that, you know what, I caused my two sons, who was 22 and 18, so much harm that I had to repair that harm. And so I made a conscious decision to call their mums first and apologize for not being there as a man to help to raise our sons. And then I said, bring my sons to me. And they came. 1 week, one came, and a few months, another one came. And they cussed me out. They cursed me in my own house, sitting next to my wife. But I understood their pain, because it was the same pain those young people had at school and the same pain I had. And through patience, through just through being patient, actually, and just, you know, connecting with them, everything, those two boys came to live with me. And that's when the journey of father to father pretty much started, and the healing started. You know, just to end it, I remember I used to, when they were living with me, I used to say to them, I love them, just to hear them say, I love you back, Dad. You hear that? I used to say, I love you, just to hear them say, I love you back. So the day when my two big boys turned around and said to me, Dad, we love you, without me saying it, I just started crying. So brilliant. That's why I started it, my brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Courtney, thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that with us. We're going to move on to Sean. I can't see that properly. It looks really...
Yeah, Sean's joined us.
At the I think he may have gone. Okay.
We've got Tony.
Well, Tony, how are you? Oh, how are you doing today, Tony? Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. My name is
Tony. I'm loving that tie, by the way.
Sorry?
I'm loving that.
Loving what?
Your outfit, what you're wearing. The top.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm Tony Seeley. I'm a social justice arts practitioner. So I use a lot of drama and theatre, really, in the work that I do. I've been working for about 25 years now, freelance, I suppose, across the board in housing, regeneration, youth and community, drugs and misuse, criminal justice, education, trying to find ways as an artist to use my creativity to look at social change, look at pieces of work that often tend to be from sort of workshops and trainings into projects and programs that are designed for a call to action. And those calls to action are anything from raising the profile of a group of people who are, one for a better word, oppressed in some way, to the point where we as a group of people want to make a change and inform strategy and policy. So the work that I tend to do is working with groups over anything from sort of 4 weeks to 2 months to make something that is important to them, that raises the profile for them, but also allows their voices to be heard, and to make something that can be used as a provocation to create some debate around how do we make changes here? What is the policy that we can now implement from this piece of work? What is the strategy that we would like the change to kind of fit? Where might that go? And so my work has really taken me across the UK. I live in Brixton, and I've done a lot of work in Lambeth and other areas over the years. And my hometown really has really inspired me to stay quite close to seeing the development of working with young people and adults and the older generation. And just to kind of give it a little bit of context to this mental health conference week that we're on, and I'm privileged to be here, and I'm thankful, is that I suppose over the last 3 or 4 years now, I've sort of been working with young people and middle-aged men looking at mental health through performance work. And certainly for the older men, the middle-aged men from sort of 30 up to about 60, the primary focus that I've been looking at is obviously depression, which has often led to, for some men, suicide. And I've been on a huge learning journey for myself on this particular program about working with Black men around mental health. And for the young people, it's also been an equal journey to just be in the same space, to listen and be part of something that I keep getting acknowledgement for the work that I do, just to see people come about in a different way. So, you know, for me, I do this work because I am very creative, and that's all I can do and want to do. I stay in my lane, and I'm fortunate enough to just keep myself pretty busy working in different kinds of areas using the gifts that I have. And over the last 3 years working with Black men around mental health, I've seen the development of the men that I've been working with to the point where they've now formed, the group of men have formed their own charity called Black Men's Consortium. And yeah, I don't want to say too much, but that's kind of what I do a little bit. So I'm happy to be here.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. We're going to move on very quickly to Sean. We're going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to speak to Andrew after. Sean, you there?
It's off mute. Yeah.
No, you've got to take yourself off mute. Okay.
The famous words of 2021. You're on mute.
Okay.
Okay, hear you.
Now. My apologies. The tech got the better of me. Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me again. My name's Sean, and I am the founder and curator of the Premier Poetry Club and the Poetry Awards. In other capacities, I work as a gang and transitional lead in Brent. In the past, I've worked in Hackney doing GP shared care, supporting the GPs with substitute medications such as methadone, buprenorphine, etc., guiding them to wean people off of that kind of medication. And mental health, I mean, well, let me first say, Hackney is very close to me, close to my heart. I was born in Hackney, born in Women's Hospital, lived in many locations in Hackney, lived in Holly Street, lived in Sandringham Road, lived in Stoneyinton, Nesbitt House in Homerton. So I've lived, I know Hackney. And I avoided working in the borough because, I knew boundaries would potentially be crossed. I know so many people, and people might not want to engage in the service if they see me working there. So I avoided it up until about 5 years ago and come back into the borough and done a few things. So when I came back into the borough, as I said, I was working with the GPs in the borough, but I also have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit about me. So I'm always creating things. And 5 years ago, I said to myself, I'm going to surround myself with creatives, young creatives. And I didn't know how that's going to manifest. Long story short, it ended up being spoken word artists and poets. And if anybody knows me from the past, this is a million miles away from something I would ordinarily be involved in. Chose Hackney to start it. We do 2 events a month, starting on Mental Health Day in Stoneyinton, starting on the 5th of October 2018, Mental Health Day, and having 2 podcasts addressing mental health as well as social issues that affect us and whatnot. What I found is spoken word poetry, such a therapeutic to deal with mental health, and to get things out. Mental health is, a lot of the time, it's about stuff that's going on inside that you can't explain. And obviously, we now know it's not as stigmatized as it was before. It's about speaking. There's no, everybody's got mental health. It's whether you've got healthy mental health or you've got ill mental health. We're always somewhere on the spectrum. So, yeah, this is what I found. And obviously, working within substance misuse, you get a lot of mental health issues going on as well. And to be fair, I didn't get into the field to deal with mental health, but I didn't realize that and I've been in the field about 15 plus years, working half with adults and half with young people. I didn't realize how closely linked it is to mental health issues and whatnot. What really shocked me is that, it's how hard it is for people to get mental health support in the community if they are using substances. They pretty much want you to be clean before they give you that kind of support. But now working with the gangs in Brent, of recent past year plus, one of the things that comes up a lot is the PTSD with the young people. Obviously, for the first, youth violence is something that's been around forever. But it has got really, really bad, and it's not just in London. It might seem like just in London because this is happening around the country. So it's not a race thing. It's a youth thing, and it's a youth thing. It's happening up and down the country. But young people are now seeing a lot of death, and they obviously find it challenging to even speak about themselves in a week from a week's standpoint. And everybody's tough. Everybody's, it's not about showing fear on the streets and things like this. But a lot of them are going through stuff. So it's challenging to get people to open up and start addressing their fears and think. That's one of the worst things. It's like the word fear is like kryptonite to gang members. Nobody wants to be known as being fearful. But the truth is, all of the violence, it's all fueled by fear on some level or another. Walking the streets with guns, with knives, etc. It's all based on fear. Nobody wants to die. There's not a lot of people that are just out there just trying to kill somebody just for the sake of killing them. They have their own reasons as to why they're doing that. But a lot of it's about fear. It's about fear. And like I said, there's a lot of undiagnosed stuff as well. But once you build rapport, once you've got that cultural competency and you can build rapport with young people, regardless of what routes they're taking, you are able to sit down and have real conversations with them. And when they're ready, they open up and you can do the work with them. If they're not ready, you can still lay the seeds. And as I say to them, if the seeds grow in a week, if they grow in a month, if they grow in 10 years, as long as you understand what we're speaking about, and you know you're empowered to use them moving forward. So yeah, these are just some of the things I do. Hopefully I get to come back and speak a little bit more. But if anybody wants to contact me in regards to the Poetry Awards, you can go on Instagram at the Poetry Awards, or you can connect on at Premier Poetry on Instagram as well, and watch some of their past events and past poets from all walks of life. Yeah,
that's great, Sean. I mean, we'll definitely come back to that because we'll have a chance to ask questions to the entire panel.
Yes.
Just to go to Andrew Mohammed.
Hi, yes.
Awesome. The floor is yours. Tell us about you, your organization, what you do, why you do it.
Okay, there's two organizations I represent. The first is Westside Young Leaders Academy, which is basically an academy aimed specifically at young black boys and girls. We are not a Saturday school. We don't class ourselves as a school. We see ourselves as an academy of leadership. And so our approach really is to deal with the holistic path to learning, where there's no point of just opening your maths book, science book, or English book, when inside the young people are feeling unworthy, feeling unloved, feeling that they're not achieving what they can do. So we try to focus particularly on the internal aspect, the mind, the heart, and the soul. And so in reality, we are dealing with a form of mental well-being for our youth. And that is the foundation of what we do. We've been in operation now for about 9 years. And, you know, it's amazing once you start speaking to some of these young people, what's actually going on inside of their minds and their hearts. On the face of it, they may look fantastic, but it was only when you open discussions, and that's what I loved when I was listening to Brother Courtney Brown, is those type of discussions that sometimes could be uncomfortable, you know what I mean, for you and for them, because they're not used to that kind of conversation. But that's the only time when you know you're really doing your work, is when they can speak to you, and some of the things that they may say sometimes may hurt you, sometimes may shock you, sometimes may amaze you, but that's when you know you're having a real life conversation, and the healing can then become a reality. So that is one of our foundational works, is to really create that internal being where they can then go to school and utilize their maths, their English, their history, their science. And so that is our foundational piece of work, and that's under what we call the Westside Young Leaders Academy. Secondly, I deal with more of the adult range of work, as well as the young people, under my company called the Real Talk, Real Action Initiative. And that's now going into schools, and that's now doing work within the community, hidden truth platforms, whereby we talk to especially the adults. And again, it's a very holistic approach. Can I just also say, I want to give a shout out to Brother Peter, the first speaker, because I love that conversation so much that I definitely want to connect with that brother. I mean, the way he spoke, and I think Brother Courtney touched on it as well, is when you're not afraid to show your vulnerability, that is when you really become a powerful man. A powerful man. And if Peter's still on the platform, I want to give you a shout, brother. You took us on a journey that was very personal. And as a black man, it's not easy to speak like that. So I just want to give a shout out to Brother Courtney, Brother Peter, because that conversation, the whole conversation, Brother Davis and what have you, okay, just I think tonight has been amazing, an amazing feat of black men talking as black men, you know, that no fear. So I'll leave it there. Also, there's much more that we do, but yeah, I know that you want to get into that conversation. Thank you, brother.
Most definitely. And my first question to everyone is, speaking a lot about obviously it being mental health, what does mental health and being a black man hold to each one of you? And anyone can start, whoever wants to go first.
I'll start, if you like. So mental health, being a black man in mental health. I think in general, with things that we were able to do anyway, we're kind of suppressed. We feel suppressed. We feel like we can't be our authentic self in all environments. You know, when we're amongst our friends, we can be our authentic self. When we're amongst our family, But as soon as you go into professional life, or you're in other environments, you don't feel like you can be yourself. So I don't think obviously you have to curb how you move in different circles, but I think as Black people, not even just Black men, to be fair, you can't be your normal self, your authentic self. So one of the words that you're always trying to avoid in a professional capacity is being seen as aggressive, for instance. And it's very subjective, for you behave a certain way around your friends and it's just normal, but you do that in another environment and it's seen as aggressive. And then you've got to make sure you don't have any people saying that and then it turns into tears and things like that. So I think just not being yourself adds to ill mental health. Living a life where you can't just be yourself with warts and all, because you see other people able to do that. Just be themselves, have a bit of a laugh. When they're sad, they're sad. When they're happy, they're happy. When they're angry, they're angry. They can do that. But as Black men, I can speak as a Black man, you have to just curb yourself beyond, and it's stifling. It's stifling, really. So it doesn't surprise me that we have such high rates of ill mental health with our Black men at all. And then you have to deal with the legacy of Black men that maybe weren't doing things as they should, and then you get touched with the same brush, and then you're forever trying to prove yourself, and there's just loads of things. So for me, I think in a nutshell, it's just a stifling, without trying to be too dramatic, but it's a stifling existence and not being able to be yourself. I think every living sentient being thrives on being able to be yourself, your authentic self.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I just want to add on to what Sean was saying. For me, it's something about knowing yourself and knowing the true self, really, which takes time, and there's times when we don't want to know ourselves, our true self. And what I mean by that, I suppose, if anything, in the simplest way, is just that self-regulation of what we're thinking or what we're feeling and where we are in different spaces, because how we're perceived by others can have a huge impact on our own thoughts and feelings, which then obviously lead to actions and behaviors. So I think for me, something at the core of it is about just having a sense of self and that ability to able to regulate at any particular time, whether it's just a conversation on the phone to being in front of 200 people. It's been the ability to be able to regulate one's thoughts and feelings and enable oneself to be as healthy as possible, and to also know that if you're not feeling very well, what mask might you want to wear? The real mask of me not feeling very well and feeling quite groggy or whatever it is, or we put on a different mask to hide those feelings and to show something else. And again, it's about trying to regulate and be aware of the state one is always in, and again, who we're with and where we are.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. It reminds me of one of the sessions that we do with the young people around ego, fear, and true self, and that kind of touches on all of those three things. But I suppose all of those things that you said are once you understand who you are, etc., you can do those things and regulate. But young Black men that feel like, and they feel like the world's against them, wrongly or rightly. They feel that opportunities are not fair out there. They feel that they're in fear of their life when they go out because the media tells them that everybody's carrying a knife, when the truth is it's not everybody that's carrying a knife, but that's how it feels to them. So for them to regulate themselves, it's something we have to teach them. We have to be patient and have those conversations with them, build rapport with them. Key is build rapport, because you can have all the information in the world, but if you can't build rapport with them, you're not going to be able to impart anything with them. But we need to teach them, you know, and what I find is there's a lot of people working with young people that don't have that cultural competency for one, and they can't build rapport with them. They're fearful of them. You know, they hear the crimes that they've done. I mean, a lot of the young people that I deal with are coming to me from prison, or they're coming from the Cruise or probation or CRC. So they're high risk, you know, these are high risk. So I hear the other professionals and how they're fearful of them, and it doesn't take much for them to write them off. Now, obviously, if they've done something as repugnant as taking somebody's life, as what happens quite a bit in Brent, to be fair, at that point, it's hard to empathize with them. But, you know, when you read some of these young people's stories, how they grew up, you know, what their social circumstances were, you know, half of them didn't have a chance, you know. So it's really about catching them early and then teaching them all the things that you just said about true self, you know, about what mask you're wearing, you know, about understanding fear, and understanding that fear is a normal human emotion, you know. But yeah, it's patience and tolerance and understanding. This is what we need for the young boys, because especially in school as well, you know, you go into a crew, the kids, the boys are like bigger than the teachers, you know, they've got mustache thicker than one that I can grow, you know, and, you know, deep voices and whatnot. So they already play into the narratives and the fears that people have. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. But to be fair, when you're dealing with them at that stage, if they're in the crew or they're coming from probation, there's a lot of work to do then. But I think there's so much work to be done way before that, you know, with young parents, you know, young parents, young children in primary school and whatnot, and grow that generation understanding things in a different way.
Brilliant.
I was going to say, as most people already know about me, I always talk about oneself, I. Yeah, so when I talk about I, because I've listened through the night and there was a lot of talk about we, but me, I talk about I and my responsibility and what I need to do for myself, how I need to do with my childhood traumas before I can start working with young people, how I have to acknowledge what my triggers are before I can deal with young people. Because if I'm not secure in my own identity, then I don't feel I can go out and work with young people. And when I talk about my traumas, you know, I talk about, and remember what I said earlier on, I was a child and I understand the context my dad was in. But then when I talk about my traumas, I'm talking about the, you know, domestic abuse I witnessed as a child. Do you get what I'm saying? My dad was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I didn't know nothing about that, you know. So you're talking about the environments that some of us have grown up in that have suppressed it. And then that trauma then plays out at a later life. My trauma came out at a later life when I was depressed and anxiety. Well, actually, there was 2 times that it happened. The first time was when my first son's mum left me, and you know I went in depression. Now that triggered me. I was drinking. I was staying in my house. I was thinking people were chatting about me and all kind of things. And somehow I managed. Now let me make it clear. I managed to just get through. Because then the second trauma, and how I managed to get through in that is that I bought into an alter ego that was a big time promoter. So it's validated me in terms of being this promoter and gave me a sense of purpose. But it was, and don't get me wrong, each to their own. I'm talking about my journey. Yeah. That validation of being this big time promoter gave me this kind of coping strategy, but it was a negative coping strategy. Because then it impacted on my relationship with my sons. Yeah. The second time when I experienced depression and anxiety and everything was, you know, as most people know, when I witnessed a white male head teacher pin down my 6-year-old son, and I walked in and saw that. And then what played out for me, which now, because I've been going therapy for the last, I think 3 months, I've got a therapist. And what we've been able to pick at is that actually, because I wasn't protected as a child, when I saw that with my son, it hit me in terms of how wasn't I able to protect my own son? So I know a lot of my triggers and what I've gone through has come from my childhood experiences. And how I have to deal with that is by seeking the right help. Like I said, I've got a therapist. But then, you know, I found that in a way, while I'm dealing with myself, I'm also able to help others because it's become my purpose as well. So, you know, I deal with myself. I know we could talk about the young people, but I deal with myself. And it's because I've dealt with myself where I can recognize some of the trauma. And as Sean talks about being relatable to young people, because I know I've been there. So I can have that empathy with them. So that's why I wanted to have discussion.
That's great, Courtney. Thank you very much. Can you go to Andrew? Andrew, what's your thoughts to the question from Sean?
Okay, in terms of mental health, I think it's really just been echoed. I mean, to me, mental health and the well-being and why it's so important is because, as the ancient people of Kemet stated, man, know thyself. And to me, the root of that is that once you get to understand who you are, which is something you never ever really get to know in totality, to be honest with you. But once you're on the path of self-knowledge, it allows you to be and live the way that you're meant to be. You know your mission, you know your aim and your purpose. That's one of the reasons why I started to do the work that I was doing, because to cut a long story short, I had a very good career job in the City of London as an underwriter. And basically, on the outside, I was seen as being successful, earning lots of money and what have you, okay? But on the inside, I knew I was living every single day a massive lie. It was like being it's like a form of schizophrenia. I wasn't mentally or medically diagnosed as that, but I realized that I'm being one thing in front of these people in the city. And by the way, I was the only black male in 4 floors of underwriters. And you got to play the game. You got to smile. I mean, I didn't go out drinking with them. I mean, there's certain things I just said I'm not doing. But at the same time, you cannot live being yourself. And once you are living a lie, and you know it's a lie, that's what creates that mental imbalance. You know, there's something inside of you. There's something inside of us. And as Brother Sean just said, it's not just about young people. It's every single one of us. Once you're living on what we call your mission, your aim and your purpose, that will give you a reason to live. That will give you that mental and spiritual balance that allows you now to go and speak to other people and help them too. So I had to make a massive decision, brothers. I had to decide, do I want to just earn lots of money, have an account, have a mortgage, and what have you, okay? Or do I want to go home every single day, look in that mirror and be able to see that reflection, put my hand on my heart and say, I like what I'm doing in my life. My life is of service. And that to me was what gave me my mental balance. I went through hell when I left that career because my good friends, and these are good friends, these ain't no backbiters and that, they were discussing amongst themselves and they said, Andrew has gone crazy. He's gone mad. They literally thought I'd gone mad, okay, brothers and sisters. However, I knew that I had to be the person that I had to be. Even if it meant me losing money, friends, and what have you, okay? I knew what I was going for, and it's not down on them. The eye is made to look out, not look in. Yeah? So I had to start looking within myself and not looking what other people are saying about myself. And that was the start for me of my mental well-being. I went through many years being, you know, many people say broke, but it wasn't broke. I was broke. Yeah, it's a different level. Yeah, I went through many years of being broke, and that's when you realize who your true friends are. Yeah, is when you're going through the hardships, is when you're going downhill. Then you be able to realize, oh, so you only respected me because of my money. You only respected me because of my position. You only respected me because of what the things that you thought I was doing and what I was saying. But what are you saying to me? How are you relating to me when I've been seen now as going through hardship? And that to me was one of the greatest lessons. And I say to my young people, sometimes it's the worst things in your life that could be your best teaching experience.
100.
That's awesome. Andrew, just to say, before you jump in, this conversation can last for like another
hour, 2 hours, unfortunately.
Hour and a half.
We have to cut it short.
Yeah.
But, you know, as you said, picking off of the back, you said you were Bruck. B-R-U.
That's the one.
You're spiritually, mentally, and emotionally rich now. I just want to say a massive thank you for answering the question. I wish we had a little bit more time to go through it. But if you can, if possible, put all your links, all your socials into the chat so everybody can keep in contact. And I'm going to be personally reaching out to everyone as well. So I'm really, really thankful for that. Thank you so much for joining us here today and being leading pioneers and role models of Black men who are challenging mental health stereotypes.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing.
That was absolutely fantastic. That could have lasted
another hour,
so much longer.
Yeah, there's more. There's more. Sean wanted to go again, didn't he? Like,
Definitely.
Sean,
I could feel it.
I could see Courtney, Tony, Andrew could have gone on for at least another half an hour, like unstopped.
I think I felt it in his spirit because it's the same name.
It was just like,
you know what I mean. But now we are joined by Gwenton Solly. So Gwenton, are you there at all? I hope you're there. Oh, Gwenton doesn't seem to be there.
Maybe some technical stuff. But just to say, just the main thing for those of you that are listening, and what I'm really getting, just to summarize it, is just this authenticity and vulnerability.
Absolutely.
So consistently in what, from what Andrew said, Courtney said, Tony spoke about knowing yourself and self-regulation, just the consistency. So regardless of what people are dealing with out there, don't try to bury it, try to pretend like, I'm a man, I'm hard, I'm tough. I don't discuss this stuff. But it's those moments of actually being really, just like really honest with yourself, being vulnerable, and also reaching out for support.
But then, what's been your own journey of mental health?
Interesting question, because I thought about this. I wouldn't have called it mental health at the time. I'd say for me, when I think back to it, I was like 9 years old. Came to London when I was like 9.
Wait, Nigeria?
Yeah, you're Nigeria.
I hear the accent. I hear
it. Nigeria. Our parents. Like only boy out of 5 children, Nigerian culture, that's pressure, like a young age. So they said, okay, come to the UK, get a good education. And I spent from the age of 9 to the age of 24, didn't see my parents once. And I was really challenging.
Absolutely.
Really, really challenging. Like I'll share more about this later on, but there were times when I did consider taking my own life as a young person. I might say 10, 11. In hindsight, I'd say, hey, mental health. But at the time, it was just, this is my life. It's really challenging. Nobody loves me. It's very, very difficult. So that's just like a
snippet.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful you're here now, though, to me, my co-host, and we're exploring mental health. I think Gwenton has now joined us. Gwenton, are you there? Can you hear us? We're waiting for you, eagerly anticipating.
Yes, I'm here. I've been in the
background
for...
We can hear you. We haven't difficulties with your connection.
Yes.
Will we be blessed with your face? We thank God.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you doing today?
Yes. I'm good. Can't complain. Can't complain. Giving thanks as usual.
Well, no, most definitely. Whilst we're here talking about being Black men and speaking about mental health, tell us a little bit more about yourself, the organization you run, and what mental health means to you.
Gwenton, you got
you're on mute.
You're on mute. Famous words of 2020.
Trust me, I don't think I've ever heard it so much apart from those Zoom calls.
You're on mute. Is it frozen?
Oh, I think we're having some technical difficulties, unfortunately, with Gwenton. Well, yes.
Gwenton's having some challenges with the connection. I mean, while he's sorting that out, so literally, when I was back to your question, so there were like trigger warning. So there was literally in my mind, because is Gwenton back? Gwenton's back.
Gwenton, you're back?
Okay, so you got to hold for the story till later on. Gwenton.
Okay. Yes, I'm here.
Frozen now, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
See if we can just
Let's It Go is what comes to my mind, a great song. But Gwenton, yes, you wanted to know a little bit more about yourself, the organization, what being Black and being around mental health and so on. What does it mean to you?
The first thing is we start off with myself. I'm a CEO of an organization called Crying Sons. We work with a lot of young people that have been diagnosed with acute mental health. I have had personal experience of being friends with people with mental health, and also had family members that have suffered mental health. And for me, it's about raising awareness And when you talk about being black and having mental health, a lot of people don't like the stigma of that. So they will rather not get the support that they need, or this whole thing of be strong. Why are you acting like you're weak? So it's that thing of, okay, I'm not going to say anything then. I'm going to actually keep it to myself until something goes horribly wrong. And I've actually seen that firsthand, where I had a young girl where me and her used to go out and train the police together. And I used to say to the police, why are you bringing out this young girl every week to talk about her trying to self-harm herself, or and amongst other things, and not giving her the support she needs after the training? And all she wanted was a flat and to join the police. And finally, the police gave her a small job to come in and hang out with the police dogs, and then she got her flat. And sadly, we then lost her after that. And I said, look, you need to think of the anxieties of someone getting everything that they want. And when it finally comes, how do you actually deal with that? So even me, myself, when I'm working with some young people, I'm having to watch the language that I use. I'm having to look at the signs. If a young person texts me and says certain things, how do I then deal with that? What is the safety plan? We should all have a safety plan. So a lot of the time we take things for granted, and not because we're not well versed within that arena. We might think, oh yeah, don't worry about it. Ring me if you need me, I'm here. That might not be as simple as it is for the person. So it's been good. And going through what I've gone through the last 3 years, where I've seen people saying to me, I don't even know how you stood strong in this, because we expected you to actually have a breakdown, clearly shows me that sometimes the way that we internalize certain things then determines how we then cope with it going forward.
Frozen? We're being frozen on purpose.
No, we're not frozen. I just stopped.
Oh. Catch you out, Quentin.
Yeah.
So just to ask, so this last 12 months has been challenging for lots of people. In about 10 days, it's going to be 1 year since the death of murder of George Floyd, which moved many people over a very, very challenging time. Two questions here. What are some of the things that you've seen? So in working with people, how has the last year and George Floyd, and how has that affected people that you've been working with? First question. And second question is, what are some of the tips, advice that you could give to people that are listening to this right now that are also impacted?
I think the first thing I'll talk about is how it's affected a lot of people that I've seen. I've seen a lot of people become radical to the point where they don't even understand what they believe in. So they've become so pro-black where they've become making themselves sick. That's the only way I could put it, where they think I'm not shopping in any shops that's not black and all that other stuff. And I think you need to have a balance. If you don't have a balance, it does more damage than anything else. And then when we're talking about what are some of the strategies, for myself, I go to swimming. As you can see here, we're here teaching young people how to play the piano and learn different instruments, because sometimes you need an outlet. If you write down your thoughts, write down your feelings, keep a log of them. My survival strategies are always have good people around me. So I've always got a catalogue of people around me that I could draw on for strength when I'm pushing forward, because I'm in an environment that is very toxic. So I'm taking in a lot of toxic thing on a daily basis. I need to have an outlet for that, because if not, I then start internalizing the toxic that I'm taking in. So it's about surrounding yourself with good people and find the outlet, whether it's swimming, jogging, riding a bicycle, just being free. Go and sit in the park by yourself. Find some stuff that makes you happy, give you a way to escape.
Perfect. Now, really great point you make there. So literally you mentioned swimming, the piano, and great people around you. So for those of you that are listening, so regardless of what you're dealing with, those are things that you can take on. Because I often talk about like some great points that you made there. So when I work with people and I coach them, I do say to them, I said, do you know what? Get out of your house, go for a walk.
Yeah.
And I say to them, just go for a walk and get really present. pluck the leaves and smell them, like things like that. Just literally get yourself really present to your environment rather than being out and on your phone. Like, put the phone away, put it on silent if you have to, or basically like, leave it at home and just soak in your surrounding with all of your senses. It gets you really present. It gets you really connected to who you really are. So I'm glad that you said that part. And fitness is massively important. So fitness is huge. The chemicals that it releases in the brain that just regulates you, that just the same senses, the same chemicals as chocolate.
Yeah. Serotonin.
Just relaxes you. It's very, very powerful. And also having the right people around you. I say this to everyone all the time. The people around you are either drainers or chargers. If you're around people that drain you, like, you just talk to them and you just know this person's going to literally drain me, you've got to just cut them off. You've got to just stay until you've recharged. Just literally keep your distance and have those around you that are going to support you and charge you up. Like, it's very, very important. Very, very important points you've made there, Quentin. Really powerful. And second thing as well is, so since George Floyd, so I run an organization called 1000 Black Boys, and we say to people that there's no point, or not there's no point, but being angry, like being angry, afraid, or confused, when you're in that place of being angry, afraid, or confused, you're easily controlled.
Yeah.
And your energy and your power can get used against you. And we always say to people, it's best to be calm, to be collected and strategic. So literally, if you can be calm, collected, and strategic, you're using a different part of your brain, your frontal lobe, and that gives you more power. That you produce better results. So I just love how you touch on those points as well.
Someone just put something in there that is really important as well. As men, we have to learn how to become vulnerable with self.
Yeah.
And even if you want to be vulnerable in public, there's nothing wrong with crying. And sometimes men internally cry and do more damage than allowing it to come out. So if you need to allow those emotions to escape somewhere, let them out instead of holding them in.
Great advice, man.
Absolutely. And I think touching on swimming, I still don't know how to swim. I'm still actually learning how to swim.
Never do I. I used to put on the sides in secondary school when we're doing like swimming lessons.
Yeah, well, what I used to do was I could make it look like I was swimming because I was tall enough. So I would sprint on the bottom and I'd just move my hands on the top. So it's funny how growth can take us to a very different place. What do you think has been the biggest challenge for you during COVID? And what do you found you've been able to better yourself in COVID, coming out stronger now?
I think the one thing that I've learned about myself is this: I'm human like everyone else. And there's only so much I could take like everyone else. Because when you've grown up to be like a soldier, when you then become an adult, you then struggle not to transfer that disease onto your own children. So I've got my eldest has just turned 18, and it's like, I want you to go uni, but I also want you to do something that makes you happy. And it's about not transferring what pain you've gone through in your life onto your children. Don't try and force them to try and be the better you. So that's what I've had to learn to do myself, because it's about understanding that all of us are individuals and you can't try and live the best you through your children. A lot of people struggle to accept that. And that's one thing that I've learned about myself throughout these past 12 months is like, you know what, Quentin, you're human. And if you need to take yourself to the restaurant and you take yourself on a date by yourself, don't feel no way and do that. So I will go to lunch with myself. And if I see something in the supermarket that I want to buy that makes me happy, I'm going to do that, because normally I do that for other people. So it's about not being selfish to yourself and also making yourself smile sometimes. Some people think there's something wrong with buying yourself a gift. Buy yourself a gift, open it and enjoy it and smile like you bought it for someone else, because those dolphins that you're releasing when you're actually feeling happy is how you normally feel when you're making other people happy. So that's what I look at now. It's not just about making everyone around me happy. I have to start making myself happy at the same time, because we don't know when our time is going to come. And the worst thing is when you're living for others, but not living also for yourself. So sometimes we have to live for ourselves and actually love ourselves, because we're all special. And that's something that a lot of people don't tell themselves, is that I'm special. I made it here. Out of all the other millions of people that was trying to come here, I was the one that made it. So I am special, regardless what anyone else thinks. I'm a special being. So I have to love myself before I love anyone else.
Great advice there. Great advice, Grenton.
What question strikes me that I want to ask is, you said your eldest has just turned 18. What has it been like being a father, especially in the times that we're in now, where particularly, people are worried about their children, but most importantly, on your journey, learning that you shouldn't necessarily project your ideas and dreams onto your child. What has that journey been like as a Black man, but also most importantly, a Black father?
It's been painful at times, I'm not going to lie to you, because when you talk to a young person and you then feel like you're at work, I think that's the most painful thing. With boys will bring you problems that you might be dealing with at work or with someone else's son. Girls will bring you girl problems. So it's about understanding that it's nothing on you as a parent. It's about them trying to explore life and understanding the dangers of technology, such as the mobile phone, what it has on to young people. Yeah, so that is my thing. What I have learned is to deal with each of my children individually instead of having a package expectation of all of them, because every single one of them are different, and it's about making time for them. For the past how many months, I'm about 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So you know what, let's sit down and have a chat. Come, we're going to go out together because we need to talk. I don't know you, because sometimes as parents we think we know our children, and then you find out they've got a boyfriend or this one has got a girlfriend. You're like, wait a minute, when did all that happen? But the mums always know. Because why? Because the mum's around. You ain't been around. And then now you have to meet a little boy and make him feel comfortable because he's now the boyfriend. And it's those sort of things as a parent that you might never want to happen, but it's better that your children feel that they could come and talk to you than think, oh, that's the scary guy that I can't have that conversation with. And it's about me as well, learning not to beat myself up if I end up feeling like I'm at work dealing with my own son. Yeah. And expecting my son to live up to my expectations when he might think, Dad, you're making me stressed because you've built some big boots and I can't feel them. Furthermore, I don't even want to feel them because the boots are too big. So I'm going to go and do my thing that makes me happy. And it's about me not taking it personal as a parent, feeling like I've lost control, because as parents, sometimes we could feel like we're losing control of our children and start beating ourselves up, and understanding that it's not that we're losing control. We're growing children in a total different environment to what we grew up in. With technology comes change, and it's out of our control. We can't even talk to them too hard these days because there's words such as you're then making them feel a certain way. So it's about loving them and giving them the space to come and talk to us. And it comes back down to what we're doing here about Mental Health Week. If your children can't come and speak to you, who are they going to go and speak to?
Yeah.
So it's about leaving that conversation open where they understand that you are approachable, and no matter what it is, how dark it is, you could come and speak to me, because if I do it for other people outside, I'm meant to be your dad, so you should be able to come talk to me.
It's great advice, Grenton. Now, lots of wisdom there. I can hear like lots of wisdom. Like it's not you're not just talking. It's not theoretical. The things you're talking about, it's real. I can hear the richness in the things that you're sharing. For those of you that are listening, look, this guy's given some really great advice. If you didn't catch all of it, you can come back and watch this again and take some notes and take some actions along those lines. So thank you for sharing the things you shared. I've got some more. Anything more you want to ask?
I have so many questions, but I'll let you ask one.
Lots, isn't it? So, when you spoke earlier about parents talking to their children, I think it's definitely important, because during the lockdown, parents having to homeschool, lots of pressure, lots of things going on. What additional advice can you give to parents that they can cope during this time? Like what more could you say that would support them?
I think sometimes parents need to deal with their own issues first and foremost. and never think it's too late to deal with self, because sometimes historical problems that we've gone through as adults then impact our way that we parent our children. And don't feel too big to say sorry. If you've got it wrong,
whoa,
just say sorry. So that is something that as parents we think, I'm not saying sorry, I'm not gonna surrender. But when you surrender, it's showing growth, because you're then leading by example. So, and even upskilling yourself, because even for me, within the pandemic, my little one was coming home with work, and the kind of maths they're doing, even in primary school now, I didn't know it. I'm like, where did this maths come from? Drawing lines to circles and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, wow, if this is what you're learning in primary school, you could go and work anywhere you want in the world, because I don't even understand a thing that's going on here. So it's about accepting as well when we're out of our own depths as parents. And I think once we could do that, we could move forward. If we can't do that, the worst thing is lying to yourself. So when you know that you're lying to yourself, but you keep lying to yourself, I think that is the most painful thing to do in life. So sometimes we have to learn to surrender, and we can learn from our own children as well, because when I've been on campaigns and everything else, is my little one saying, Dad, what are you doing? Go on TikTok, show people that you're human. I'm like, nah, I'm too serious to be on TikTok dancing to music and them sort of stuff. So it's about understanding that sometimes you're the one blocking yourself moving forward because you're so rigid, and it's about slowly coming out of your comfort zone, even though it's worked for you all these years. It's about, no, I'm going to try something else. So simple things. I'm on TikTok now. I'm not start dancing yet, but maybe next year or something. But yeah, it's learning, slow progress.
Brilliant. And also, if you can share your details with us, we'll post it. We'll share it to the community that's looking at this. And I do love what you said. So, because when I was growing up, my dad was really clear to all the children, Nigerian dad. He said he wanted a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, or pilot, and that was the remit. And I kind of thought, do you know what? Okay, I don't like the other ones, like doctor, blood, no, rule that out. Lawyer, arguing, no. Pilot, not bad. Engineer sounds safe, so I picked that option. So like now I run businesses. I progressed into sales, and I just think it's really important that parents don't impose, like you said, their past or their view on their children, because it will impact them mentally.
But you know what? Following on from what you just said is this: when I was growing up, I was meant to be a lawyer. I went to uni, studied law, but because of certain mishaps when I was a young person, I've got one strike on my DBS that will prevent me from sitting on the bar. But if not, I would have been sitting on the bar now. But I've made my family more proud doing what I'm doing than being any barrister. What I've achieved in my life is more bringing more happiness to everybody and uniting everyone than me sitting down being a barrister. So sometimes I think that parents just want to be proud of their children, but instead they look at this doctor, lawyer, and make sure you go and get a job. They don't understand within COVID, the doctor and lawyers had to be behind their doors as well. So it's about understanding that with the change of times, certain professions will be ruled out if they're not able to work virtually. So we're working in different times right now.
I think it's funny how you said we focus a lot on achievements, but not the journey it took us to get to those achievements. Again, I was supposed to be a lawyer, ideally. It seems like we all had something in common, most definitely. But I think evidently your children must be blessed to have a father like yourself who is practicing healthy, practices and senses of trying to allow his children to be who they want to be. It's been an absolute pleasure having you to join us and to share your insights into fatherhood, being a black man, and also mental health.
Thank you very much
for having me. Yeah, blessing and love, everyone. Take care. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm on all social media platforms. Just type in Gwent and Slowly.
And we're looking forward to your challenges and your dances.
Yeah. Once it comes, I'll make sure I share them. Yeah?
Yes, man.
All right. Awesome. Blessings, everyone.
Have a great one.
See you soon.
See you later.
Love.
There's an
Wow.
absolute, that's a heartwarming insight into
Yeah, he's
fathers.
wise. Yeah, there was lots of wisdom there from Quentin.
And it seems like we were all supposed to be lawyers. None
Yeah,
of
it
us
was on my
became
list.
lawyers, eh?
It was on my list, man. Lawyers.
No, most definitely.
Yeah, lawyers. And for those of you that are with us, if you were also going to be a lawyer, you can put into the chat, or you can put into the chat what your parents asked you to be. While we bring on our next guest, so our next guest, Abdi Hassan, going to come along and join us. So put into the chat, were you going to be a lawyer, a doctor, engineer? What was it? So invite Abdi to the stage. Abdi, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm very good. Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak, both of you and everybody listening.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you on. I mean, Abdi, so thank you for being on. We've had a great conversation today. I'm sure you've caught some of it. And just tell us about who are you, what do you do? And key question I always ask everyone is, why do you do it? So who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
So my name is Abdi. I grew up in Ter Hamlets, but originally from a country that many people don't know because we've been independent or trying to be independent, Somaliland in East Africa. Oftentimes people hear of Somalia and think of Mogadishu and the civil war, but we are the north of the country and it's an independent community or country that's had no problem of civil war in itself. My dad was a seaman. He also brought, as part of the diaspora, 25 people to this country, East London. He was someone who was always a charity man. He passed away 8 years ago due to pancreatic cancer. And as a result, it's in me, it's in my DNA that every day I fight activism or at work as an activist. I also came from what some people might say is a difficult childhood. And that meant some childhood experiences that were traumatic, which actually oftentimes, and I'll talk about data perhaps if you allow me later, that happens to a lot of us black men and the black community in general that oftentimes we also don't speak upon. I was homeless, I'm recovered in addiction and other areas, and I'm technically, they say I have PD, personality disorder, once bipolar, so my story is quite clear and I speak openly because I'm not ashamed of my story. And I do what I do now because although I qualified as an accountant, I care passionately for our community and especially for young black men. And the reason why I care is because they are me. We are equally the same. And we have the same problems and same challenges with structures and other issues too. So I do it because I am them. That's why I do what I do every day. And my activism involves many different areas, Dave.
Abdi, I'd love to know, when did your journey of activism begin? Because I know activism is something that can take quite a mental strain on a lot of people. It's full time. It's something that's not quite easy. So tell me a little bit more about that journey and how you're coping with it.
Thank you, brother. And I think before we jump into another intense question, I think you guys have done incredible. You've been sitting for so many hours. It takes a lot of patience. And I don't see any food there yet. I don't see any liquid. So well done. Yeah, I bet. So I just want to say well done because the work you're doing is really critical and necessary. So thank you, may God bless you. I actually did what I was put into acute care, and for people that may not understand what that is, it's sectioned, and that's because I had a mental health breakdown, and that's where my injustice and activism started. Because for me, I think a lot of times what I have seen in my lived experience as an expert by experience, particularly amongst young black men and black people in general, is we are being over-sectioned, we are being over-medicated, and oftentimes that's because we don't have the culturally competent services or services that are based on our needs, our culture, and that has a lot of tribalism in some communities and also much more tree of life healing focused approaches. So my activism started because it was to fight for my life, and that's why my activism started.
Wow, that's powerful. And whilst you've been on your journey so far, usually our darkest nights become our brightest days. Take me through those.
So my darkest nights were many, and actually my darkest nights, which turned into my brightest day, were on my knees praying. And although it sounds cliched, it's fact. I spent a lot of my time knees, praying for God's forgiveness, praying for healing, and praying for recovery. And in my faith, particularly as a practicing Muslim, it's critical that I am able to repent, that I'm able to really receive healing and understand there is a higher power. So I think my blessing, my good days despite being really, really on my knees praying. So that's, I think, the best thing I can say to you in terms of that answer.
Wow.
Awesome. And just with what you said as well earlier, because I've currently, Abdi, I've got a friend at the moment, I'll give him a shout out later on, who's currently in Myland Hospital.
Wow.
And he said the same thing to me during the week. He called me on Tuesday because he has a story that he's written for the BBC, and he's just updated it. And he just said that black men get sectioned quicker, literally more often and quicker. And he said that normally, his words were, if it was a white person, they'd normally get counseling or a counselor to work with them. But normally, from his experience, lived experience as well, that when it's a black male, it's just straight to being sectioned. Yeah, just say more about that.
So I think the first thing I will say, and thank you for that, I just seen somebody who's just welcomed me. God bless you, sis. I think that the most important thing to mention to you is that it's fact. And I know this through my lived experience, but more critically, I know this because I'm very fortunate to have recently started as a board member at NHS England's London Mental Health Wide Transformation Board. Right. And what I've seen already, brothers, is that across London, we have a crisis. We have an epidemic of black brothers, particularly, and black sisters being sectioned. In some trusts being sectioned at the levels of 45 to 60% in some communities, when we make up less than 5% of the local community. And what that really shows you is that there is a great inequality. And I speak on this not to kill off the Saturday night, because we have to speak truth to power and we have to speak truth, right? But I don't want to kill the vibe here, because you guys it's been beautiful watching tonight, the positive vibes. But the brother who's in Myland, and I live literally 5 minutes away from where he is, it really hurts my heart. And it hurts my heart because there's so many of our people at the moment. And I'm not saying they shouldn't all be there, but some people genuinely do need healing and support and structured recovery. But there are so many people of color who are being sectioned without really the initial triage properly occurring around culturally sensitive care. What are the triggers? Why is the person there? What was the build-up? What can we do to support them in the community? What wraparound support can they afford? One of my our blessed colleagues, we're very privileged to have her as a community connector, Farah, who works in Tower Hamlets. And we're blessed because she's a woman of color, a hijabi sister. And I mention her because it's an honor that we have her, but also because she's able to refer, as part of her work, into a referral pathway model before we section that brother or sister. But we need to do more, and especially I know convinced there are trusts here that are listening and senior people. And it's not to criticize, it's to say, we deserve a chance just like any other community member, any other race. And instead of assuming or seeing anger as violence, it's important you understand what's the underneath or the trauma or the childhood trauma that's occurring, and to give us the support that we deserve. Because right now, it's just not good enough.
I got that. Like, so you touched on it. So for my friend Tosi, for those that are listening out there, could you touch on some of the solutions? So how do we solve this? How do we deal with this?
To be honest, and you're going to have to forgive me, brother, but I think community leaders, of which you are many, and we are all right behind you and stand on your shoulders. I think we have to spend a bit more time speaking truth to power, I think, and that means supporting. I'll go at the high level first in terms of structures, and that means really showing data, like the data that I have now, that we have across all of London, and over-sectioning and over-medicating. But I think fundamentally at a citizen level, like me, a person who's expert by experience, because I'm always 2 steps away from a crisis myself, all of us are, as we are all 2 steps away from homelessness or any other trauma. But I think it's very important to get the help. And that means being persistent. In moments of deep crisis, I found that when I called any group, any charity, we didn't really click. There wasn't that spiritual or personal connection. And that's why I talk about culturally competent services. You both work in the community. You understand what I mean in relation to structures. And structures need to invest. Instead of us going through bidding and other processes, they have to support Black organizations far more aggressively at the moment. Because we are at the moment, trigger warning to anyone who's listening, we have excess deaths right now, 4 times more of our Black men dying than any other group due to mental health. And it's only increasing. So I say to the person who might be listening, to my brother in my limb, to Tosin and others, firstly, please don't give up for the love of God. Please don't give up. I beg you, don't give up. Get the help that you need. And that means being constantly persistent. It also means that you go to A&E if you have an immediate danger or problem or concern with your life. It also means, as some of the brothers you spoke to earlier, the incredible brothers, that you seek the healing that you deserve. There aren't many, but there are now many smaller organizations who are trying to provide culturally competent services. Do the research. But fundamentally, I think it's about investing in your healing. It's so important that we get the help, do the research. But if you are in crisis, don't stay home in crisis. Get the help, and that means going to A&E, going to hospital, and fundamentally don't give up, because that's what we're seeing a lot of at the moment, brothers. A lot of people, and sorry, trigger warning again, that are saying, I can't cope anymore. And the pandemic, the awful murder of George Floyd, and many other things that we've seen, whether it's Mark Duggan or other people or other brothers and sisters, it's just not acceptable. So we have to understand where we're at, and we must keep fighting in terms of just activism as a community. And finally, just to conclude, that we support, like the mother in Newham, who's lost not one son, but 2 sons to knife crime, and that we help ourselves as a community too.
Abdi, that is powerful words, and I can hear the vigor and the passion in your voice. And quite often, a lot of people that would have perhaps have gone through what you have gone through wouldn't have the strength, in some senses, to even go and speak truth to power, and then to also be on the board for something that's going to be transformative. How are you coping with that as well?
To be honest, I have really bad days, and I have tough days. There are days that I can't get out of bed, and that's because it's a challenge. And right now, life is a challenge. We're all facing a pandemic that none of us have a book to read from or understand, and also we're all just trying to make it in health, make it in spirit, make it in our incomes, in our housing, and all the other intersectional issues that exist. But for me, I do it because, for the organization that I work at, Coffee Are Free, which is initially started as a culturally sensitive crisis cafe, and now running several projects, I have such, I'm blessed to have amazing colleagues. And what pushes me is, it's important for me that I serve them. And fundamentally, it's important for me that I serve my people. And I see that actually, because of where I'm from, that we are a community that is invisible. We are not seen. And oftentimes that really frustrates me. And I know Viv and others will know some emails that I do send, and I kick off every now and then, but that's the energy that keeps me going, because I have God on my side, and the good days outmatch the bad days. And actually the bad days make me know that I'm still human. But today, for example, I was at the Palestinian protest, very loud and vocal, hence the horse type voice. But I'm very proud to do stuff like that, because it tells me that what I'm doing is critical at the moment, serving over 534 clients per week. And that includes every intersectional part of our community. So for me, it is incumbent on me as a practicing Muslim to help my people and our community, all of our people, the African Caribbean communities.
Wow. Wow.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, just like your passion comes across.
Thank you, brother.
And what I'd say is, because you're so clear on what you're about, there's like no nonsense. Like, no
straight
nonsense.
to the point.
Like, bam. This is
I'm playing. No, I've spent a lot of my time wasting.
Do you know what it is, Abdi? You're a straight shooter, man.
I'm playing because I've gone to many meetings and sessions, and people talk, right? We do this and do that. We're going to promise this and promise that. And I'm like, I don't have time for this anymore. Because right now we have, on average, 2 or 3 brothers dying per week, sometimes more. We have our Black families in hostels when they should be in homes. We have the over-sectioning matter I spoke to you about already, and all the other intersectional issues, right? And also, for me, I stand right at the back of a queue of incredible leaders in the community, like Viv and many others. and Jake Ferguson, I'm sure he is here tonight, and many other brothers that have been an exceptional support to me. But also, I speak on behalf of my ancestors who were incredible. Maya Angelou, Marcus Garvey, Nelson Mandela, and many incredible people. It's incumbent on me, so I have to honor them. It's very important for me that I honor them. And it sounds so cliched and all this stuff, but I mean it. So that's why I'm like, say what you need to, mean what you say, and keep on keeping on.
I think you define of say it with your chest and feel it with your heart.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Honestly, I think both of us are somewhat in awe and enamored by the passion that is absolutely coming through. And technology can only block us from feeling your power for so far, but we can still feel it.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brothers. I really do. Thank you. God bless you both.
Thank you. Have you got any so I know one of the questions that was there for the speakers is any book recommendations that are watching, whether live or they'll watch later on. Have you got anything that you'd recommend people read during this time that could support them mentally?
To be honest, so at the moment, I'm really trying to educate myself more. And that really relates to changes in mental health law, for example. And that is the incredible Dr. Jackie Dyer, who I know you know very well. The incredible work of ELF, East London Foundation Trust, and many other organizations like HCVS, yourself, and your organization, Viv. The Open Minds Alliance, which is what you're doing now, is incredible. But I'm reading a lot about PCREF. And PCREF is assessing at the moment, it's from NHS England, looking at how mental health services must be more equal and must provide better services for people of color. So I'm reading that as a live document. I'm also reading a book, hopefully it will come through properly, it might not, but it's by one of the most famous QCs in the country. It's called Michael Mansfield, and Memoirs of a Radical Lawyer. And I'm reading that because I'm thinking I really need to learn much more about just the law itself and how better to carry myself when we're in tribunals, because we represent client at tribunals. And also when I'm talking to some elected mayors and others. I read the Quran a lot, which is our holy book as Muslims. I also read How to Find Joy. I'm reading for at the moment, How to Find Joy in your daily life. So really, for me at the moment, it's all about self-care and self-help. And that's what I'm doing a great deal of. And in relation to just general self-care, I wanted to show you also what I'm doing a lot, and I'm drinking what's in my cup now, in my mug, is black seed oil, which is a very key oil for Muslims and other people of us. And also our holy water, which is Samsam water. From Saudi Arabia. So these are the sort of things I do just generally. It's not reading, but these are activities. But I know Viv said earlier, and you were speaking about exercise. That's something I do quite a lot at Victoria Park, which is to focus on my endorphins. But really, it's about mental health law, understanding law, and understanding radical law. That's what I'm really trying to educate myself about at the moment.
That's great. And to ask us, for those that are listening, so Coffee or Freak, we've got the ads. So somebody who's listening to this and they're thinking, I want to support what Abdi's doing. Like I want to support that. Like I really share that vision. How can they get in touch? What kind of support do you need specifically right now?
You know, I think, brother, the thing is to get behind Open Minds Alliance as an organization and many others. This is, I think, the first time, and I've attended many events, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Forgive me if anybody's out there listening and you've done similar events, but I think for me, it's been the most empowering. It's been the most honest. I was listening to some of the brothers earlier, especially the brother talking about his sectioning. And it really, really touched my heart because we don't speak enough, I think, in my humble opinion, especially my community as black men, about the trauma behind some of what we're going through. And also the sensitive elements of how we are spirits, because we are loving, sensitive spirits. So I love that event, this event has highlighted that. So Open Minds Alliance, Build Back Trust, your campaign, it's very important. From what we're doing, we're very grassroots, very small, but we have big impact, I believe. What I also want to say is, for us, it's not necessarily about getting back off your fruit. I just say, if you have time and capacity, please. It would be amazing if you are able to support your local direct community, your own direct community. And that means if you have any time at all, which is very precious right now, joining or supporting the local food banks. There's so many at the moment. Supporting our young black men who are going through deep trauma at the moment, and some being groomed into groups. I would also encourage anyone out there who's listening to make that call to people that you haven't spoken to a long time, and forgive deeply at the moment. Please forgive deeply, because it will help in your own healing. And just fundamentally, just help your own doorstep. You know, I do quite a lot on my own local direct street, my own street. And that means knocking on elders, delivering food, checking in, that sort of stuff. It's really amazing how some people haven't spoken or had a visit for over months, weeks even. So that's what I would encourage, really. That's my best advice. It's not that we necessarily need it. I just would encourage you, please, to do your 1%. Because if we as a Black community, our incredible community, do our 1%, then we will totally change things. And just to conclude my part here, what I saw today at the Palestinian March really moved me. And it moved me because for once I was thinking, wouldn't it just be amazing to see all of us, our incredible Black community, marching from our community areas into, say, where Sadiq Khan is and many other community spaces, and into Downing Street, and saying enough is enough. We cannot just ignore right now that our young Black men and our girls are passing at the rate that they are passing. And I'm not blaming anyone here. I'm not being antagonistic. I'm just speaking truth. We can't let that happen. And I say that because right now there's a mother grieving, and that's not good enough for me.
Abdi, I'm sure you're a man who, you know, feels quite positively, but also quite realistically about the future. And I remember I saw a quote that once also said that to believe in a new world is quite a radical within itself, because to live where we are living can be quite negative, can be quite depressing. It can be a downward spiral. Abdi, what keeps you going? What is that passion that keeps burning?
To be honest, I'm angry. I'm angry positively. And that's a bit of a paradox. And it's because for me, I think of slavery a lot, right? And I don't want to dissect the many elements of it, but that makes me angry. And then I look at structures, and we had a lot of structures say Black Lives Matter. Political leaders kneel down in their Armani suits. We have people visiting food banks with photo calls at particular warehouses. But the question I asked today, what has actually structurally changed?
Yeah.
And then I asked certain largest funders who didn't actually fund according to what they had promised initially. So what keeps me going is I like the fight. I like a bit of a rumble. I've always loved a bit of a fight, a positive fight, that is. And I think of, and I love that quote you said. I always think about that. But I also think of Senator John, who passed away last year, who said he is this year, who said it's about, for me, creating good trouble and good noise. And I live by that every day of my life. As long as what you're doing, I believe, in my humble opinion, your activism is clean and it is good but strong and firm, I think you can change things. And in my humble ways, and the team that I'm privileged to work with, I've seen already the impact that we can have just by creating good trouble and good noise. And that's what keeps me going. But on the flip side, and sadly, what keeps me going is also I see how many mothers, how many young people need our noise as Black men at the moment. And how it's so important for me that we heal right now too as a Black community. So what keeps me going is time, and that I have hunger, and I know we can change things, just as Malcolm X did, just as Dr. Martin Luther King did, just as Maya Angelou did, and many others before. So that's what keeps me going. It's possible, and we mustn't give up.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Well, Abdi, thank you very much. It's been great having you on.
Thank you, brother.
We'll definitely share your details with the community. But yeah, no, thank you. It's very, very inspiring hearing you speak. Love your passion, love your clarity, love your energy. I love what you said about angry positively. Because you're right. Because like last year, there was all this talk about Black Lives Matter, lots of photo ops.
Yeah.
Some people going around wanting statues to be taken down. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm thinking, because the people that I deal with, I'm like, they don't care about your statue.
Yeah.
They don't care about that. Keep the statue. Help them build the statue.
Right.
Interesting. Give me the money you will use to take down the statue. Give that to me and my organization, and we'll create 5-10 entrepreneurs that can take that statue down 10 times over. Or
Alhamdulillah,
they'll transform the community, and the statue doesn't really matter. So.
I agree, brother. And just as I said, to conclude my side, that's why you've both had transformational impact on our people and our communities, because that's exactly what's needed. People don't want statues. We do want, but not necessarily statues to be removed when you're not actually empowering people at a grassroots level. And there is, as you know, data from the incredible charity So White. And what we know about charity So White from a community perspective is that 8 out of 10 Black organizations are closing or will close by the end of this year. That's not good enough. Yep. That's not acceptable to me. And that means that if they close, who supports the direct community? And who supports our people to become more vibrant, to become powerful like we are? Because we are powerful. But you're absolutely right. I think it's about just saying, let's be angry positively. Perhaps not like the same energy I'm giving now, but perhaps a bit more diplomatic. But I think it's necessary that our community leaders, like both of you gentlemen, that we are able to really empower and encourage our people to create businesses and to become successful, but also just to use positive language.
Awesome. Abdi, thank you very much. Great to have you on.
Thank you. You two both. Get some food and rest.
Yes.
Listen, fed my belly with knowledge, man. I'm not hungry anymore.
I bet you are. Don't do it. You'll be going to KFC later or something. Don't try it.
No, listen, no KFC. McDonald's. I haven't had that for over 5-6 years.
Okay, I take that back.
He's going to Nando's.
Okay, fair enough. Do that. I'm going KFC. Thank you very much, gentlemen. God bless. Take care.
Take care, brother.
Salam alaikum. Bye.
Bye. See you later. That's great, man.
His passion is...
Yeah, passion's really clear.
Yeah.
Passion's really clear. And I'll just say to those that are out there, like, be passionate for what you're about.
Absolutely.
Be passionate for what you do. And you can tell that his passion sources his life.
Yes.
And that's a powerful medicine for mental health.
Absolutely.
Powerful medicine for life, I'd say.
Purpose is key.
Totally.
Absolutely.
We're going to wrap up very, very shortly. We're going to bring on this young man in about 4 minutes or so. I'll call him Viva Moon. And just something like, you spoke about quotes earlier. There's a quote that I've got on my wall that really inspires me. And just for those that are definitely out there, the quote is by Eleanor Roosevelt. And it says that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So just to literally, like I say, if you're still breathing, you're still in the game. So it doesn't matter like how dark the night gets, but if you still wake up in that morning and you can still go again, it means that you're definitely still in the game. And talking from experience, I'm sure there's been things that you've been through yourself that have been very, very challenging. I like the stories that I question that you asked earlier. So trigger warning. So this 9-10-year-old in the mind of like a 9-year-old was kind of looking at the different options to kind of like leave this world. Looking at this option, that almost in like a risk assessment of the best way to go. But the thing that shifted it for me was knowing that the people around me love me. Like that made a huge difference. Although I didn't see that at the time, because even when I got to 17, I ran away from home because I was just like, these Nigerian sisters just too tough. I can't take any more of this stuff. I'm out here. And I just literally allowed us to have something that every speaker spoken about, allowed us to have a very honest and authentic conversation. So that'll be it. I'll just say from the key points from those who've spoken, is about having authentic conversations with those that are around you, not trying to do it all by yourself, not trying to be macho, not trying to be the tough guy, but literally having honest conversations with your loved ones, people that can support you, and be vulnerable. Like vulnerability is very, very powerful, and it makes a huge difference. And also with that is being true to yourself. So being authentic with yourself. I remember what Andrew Mohammed said earlier, like he used to work as an underwriter, but he, if I paraphrase, like he hated it. Like it wasn't him. So live a life where you're true to yourself. Live a life, I'd say like live a life of purpose. Otherwise there's no point. There's no point. Like it definitely keeps you going. What do you think? What was your key points?
The most profound for me was listening to Peter. Especially his story, talking about section, how he spoke about it very openly.
Very vulnerably, like it was just...
Yeah. And I think I saw a comment from Courtney Brown spoken about that, vulnerable, authentic and transparent.
Yeah.
And that's something that we all could be a lot more. And I think from having these sort of conversations, it's going to push something on further. Usually everything that's big has really small beginnings. And usually it takes a seed. So yeah, we're here listening. It's been absolutely fantastic so far. It's such a shame that we can't go on for a lot longer.
You've got a ghost in, isn't it? Yeah, that's the one from Courtney. Yes. And also there's a question here from Donald Schloss.
What are the examples of Black mental health programs that are working well, but we can offer to our local health authorities and our community?
I think that's a great question for Viva Moon. And at this point, because literally, seriously, like when I call him, like Viva Moon. At this point, let's bring on
the chief.
Viva Moon. There he is. How you doing, Viv?
I'm very well. It's been a pleasure watching you two manage the space so deftly. It's been humbling because I mean this is the preeminent one, isn't it? Tomorrow we've got the sisters, and we just don't see Black men conversing and communing publicly like this often enough. And the state propaganda, unwittingly or otherwise, always portrays us in conflict in some way or other. You know, the best we can hope for is sport, and even then it tends to be combative. So just having us in this space, being masculine in a non-threatening way, it's just so healthy. And as you both rightly said, it doesn't happen often enough. I was so desperate to be in one of those chairs, and I caught myself and I thought, what's that about? Why do you want to be in front of the camera for this? And it is because I just don't get to spend enough time around others who sound and look like me, you know, communing, and particularly during this last year in lockdown. So much of it has been through the camera.
Yeah.
And I thought that because of how I can be, it might have been overwhelming for me. You know, I might have become, you know, intoxicated and then more performative as a consequence of that, because it's one of my triggers that I get really hyped up when I'm excited, and people misinterpret it as me being arrogant and overbearing and so on. Well, they experience it that way, but it's not where it's coming from for me. So it was really, 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 really rewarding for me to be silent for this one, observing. And we definitely wanted Peter on. Peter's amazing. And, you know, I want to do like a 1.5 hour deep dive with him, you know, one of them ones there.
Yeah, no, he was on point when he just spoke about his experience. And it was just how he just shared it. Almost like Tesco, gonna buy some cereal, gonna buy some oranges.
Yeah. Well, that's what. So I've got another sister that she did it on Wednesday with Children and Families. Alison D'Souza, based in the States. Same, you know, soul destroying narrative delivered in a way that's so it allows people to engage with it. Do you know when you deliver something with
it's authentic.
Yeah, but what I mean is, you know, like I can be really loud and what it does is it cancels out. It makes it difficult for people to hear the narrative, hear the story. Where somebody like Peter actually delivers it in a way that allows you to listen and actually hear what he's saying. It just goes right through you. So yeah, I was grateful that he was able to get onto the thing. And we're starting to do the numbers, and so we know that this week so far we've had, by tomorrow, after the sisters, you know, big players like Dr. Jacqueline Dyer and Faye from the Caribbean and African Heritage Network, after they've spoken, we'll have had 118 guests come and speak over the last 7 days.
Wow.
And we're still doing the numbers in terms of viewing and all the rest of it. We'll do all of that. And that's really important for me, that we use spaces like this, not to just have a one-off event, tick a box and move on, which is inevitably how the statutory services handle it and how we're compartmentalized into handling it as well. And rather have it as a rolling narrative, a rolling conversation and reflection that, as you were both just saying, feeds into the next steps. Marika, the chair of Omar, will be on tomorrow talking about what those next steps look like. You know, you've got Omar, you've got Black Thrive, you've got CAHN, you've got a number of Black networks that previously weren't actively engaging with each other. Mm-hmm. But they are increasingly now, and this week they've been collaborating with each other. They're all coincidentally or not run by Black women, no Black men running any of these networks. But they'll all be talking with each other tomorrow, and I'm not sure how much they will say on camera, but they're planning for next steps. And that's what we need to see more of, surely, us coming together outside of the influence of the statutory services to plan our steps, not being distracted by their crumbs, but taking agency and not being given agency to act and do what is in the best interest of our family and our young people. Councillor Bramble, Deputy Mayor of Hackney, said something on Monday. Monday was the great and the good, Lord this and Dame that. And they all speaking very eloquently, and it was all very powerful. And then Councillor Bramble said something, and it just cut through for me. She said, when it comes to it, you can't wait to be invited. You just got to take your chair. I'm like, wow. I mean, to somebody else to be, you know, because I was saying it on camera, and I was like, what I don't live on about. But that landed for me. You've just got to take a chair. There comes a point where you can't keep asking, marching, protesting. So it comes a point where you just got to take your chair. It's yours. Don't wait for them to offer you a chair at the table. You just got to take it. And that's what this week is about for me. And many people have said, well, build back trust. You know, we never had trust because they assume we're talking about build trust with the statutory services, build trust, you know, with the, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about intergenerational trust within our community, trust within the family. That's what we're talking about, because there's everyone has been saying in their own way. It really does come back down to how unified we are. That's what it gets down to, because once you're unified, people can't stop you. You can't. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, when you get a high performance team is about 6 people, between 6 and 12 individuals. When you get a high performance team functioning as one, it can't be stopped.
But Viv, how important is that collaborative approach? Because you're creating a platform here and alongside others.
Let me just qualify that. We are facilitating the space that allows for it to come into existence because it wants to. This pandemic and lockdown, you know, is a once in a generation experience. Many people who are big thinkers but haven't had the space to think, has been given the space for a year to sit down and reflect, stop, get out of the, you know, that little wheel they've been running around in, and, you know, because of that pattern interrupt and do some deep thinking and say, hold on a minute, let me do this differently. Right? So this is a facilitated space. I'm not creating anything. I mean, because I'm visioning and I'm a futurist, I spend a lot of time reading and talking and listening and reflecting so I can see that there's something that's changed. And so then I take the opportunity to facilitate something, in consultation and partnership with a range of other individuals who can see too. All of these networks are involved in. We couldn't pull 118 people together to come and speak for, you know, every day of this week for 3 hours without a lot of coordination, you know, a lot of capacity to manage the logistics. That takes a whole range of skills and a number of individuals, all of whom can see the same thing that I'm seeing right now. And that's where I'm coming from with it. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You've already answered my question. I was going to ask you, how essential has the collaborative effort been to bring so many people together to allow the facilitation of, you know, speaking about mental health.
And people, again, there's so much learning we've got to do in our community. I mean, it's just the language. I've had people interview me in the past, and I've spent most of my time cleaning up their language as they speak. You know, they see the mental ill health and the striving for mental health as some kind of compartmentalized binary thing, when in fact it's systemic. It cuts through every aspect, every facet of our lives. It's a spiritual issue, as well as it is an economic and social issue. The only way that we can address it is by approaching it in a systemic way. That means those are in the corporate sector, those are in the church, those are in the mosque, those are working for the NHS, those are out on the road shotting. We have to address it across the board. That means all of us have to be communicating. It can't be addressed by the individuals in the white coat alone. It can't be addressed by the uniform blue bottle top, whatever they call them, out there on the road arresting our people out of existence. It cannot be addressed in that way. We can't stop the violence and the self-harm or any of that in that way. It has to be dealt with in a truly systemic way. It has to be. And that must start with us all coming together. And some people will come in even tonight and say, Viv, you know, I'm not a doctor, so, you know, I don't even think I should be up here. This issue belongs to all of us, and we should all deal with it from a centric and collective perspective simultaneously. So I think that it's been a very important week so far, because it's given us the opportunity to determine whether or not we can do this relatively easily, because of the advances in technology and because of where people's minds are at right now. And the short answer is yes. We want to be doing this globally. You know, I'm a global African. I don't perceive myself as someone that's, you know, restricted to any specific landmass. And there was some pushback when we said we wanted to do this event across boroughs, boroughs collaborating. There were people saying, "Oh, that we just want to be in this borough, and we just want to be." That's half the problem with our young people running around down there thinking they've got to die for a postcode. It starts with us. I love Abdi. I mean, he made the point about us being spiritual beings, and we need to get back to that, and be less caught up in all of this boundaried physical stuff that prevents us from moving on and being healthy spiritually.
Awesome.
Not a big talk for a Saturday night, eh?
You know what I mean?
But look, behind you, you've got the elders there looking over you. Yeah, that's a triple high resolution image. Yeah, I know you're close enough to be able to see the pores in his face. Yeah, we need that intergenerational thing. It doesn't make sense for our elders to be frightened of our young.
Absolutely.
And for our young to think the elders are irrelevant and redundant like their old trainers. So, yeah.
Yeah, not even like the night trainers, but the British Knights. Remember them ones.
You guys have done a great job, though. I mean, yeah, it's just lovely watching you guys work.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Thank you for the invitation. Like, I love doing this, and like I love the fact that it's talking about like mental health. It's like it's really key, because for me, it leads to so many things. Like you just said, a key source of wealth is from the mind, like what you create, the things that you come up with.
Absolutely.
Because you can create anything. You can create it and make it a reality. So for me, it's always a yes. And some brilliant conversations tonight. Like you said it earlier, you quoted Councillor Bramble, literally like, don't wait to be called to the table. Just pull up a chair, sit down.
Pull up the chair.
Pull up the chair, just grab a seat. Like, hello, here's my agenda.
Make your own table at this point.
This is how this is going to go down. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So on that note, our time is nearly up.
Yeah.
It's been great with my co-host. Marika, Vivian, mental health interconnects us all.
Absolutely.
Indeed, Marika.
Absolutely.
It sure does. It sure does. For those of you that are there, please continue to comment while we wrap up. And I'm going to say this. So if you found this really useful, please share this. So don't keep it to yourself. coming from love, be straight, because I'm a coach with people. Don't be stingy. Share this. And also, if you found this useful and you love it, press the heart button so that we can tell. We've currently got 22 people online and there's 4 likes. There's a gap there, isn't it? So if you found this useful, you stayed until 10 p.m. on a Saturday evening, you must press that button. So on that note, Viv, do you want to say anything closing? Sean, anything from you as we wrap up?
I'll let Viv say something closing.
Look to self first. Look to self first. We have to do the work on ourselves in order to be able to do the work within our family and the wider community. That's critically important. We see a lot of people out there running around doing stuff outside when really internally they're broken. We've got to do the work on ourselves. Alex Holmes said something to me recently. He said, too many black men are emotionally dishonest. Yeah, so if we're not well, it doesn't make sense pretending that we are well. We've got to do the work. That connects back to the authenticity point that you were speaking about before. So I've had a great evening, and yeah, look forward to tomorrow.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening. Enjoy your Saturday evening, and you can play this back. Bye-bye. Build back trust.
Absolutely. What a fantastic time.
Yeah.